Chapter 37:25. Madman walked in front of Princess Wuffing. Seeing her terrified expression, he was both angry and amused. He said helplessly, "What are you waiting for? Lead the way." Ah! Princess Wuffing looked at Madman with a surprised expression. He didn't even say a word of reproach. This didn't match Madman's character. "Do you have to let me scold you a few times before you feel better?" Madman was speechless. "No need, no need." Princess Wuffing came back to her senses and waved her hand. "Who would ask for a scolding? It seems that they also understand your difficulties." Fire Phoenix Divine Jade smiled. Those who know how to think from another perspective, not to mention other things, their character is definitely impeccable. Fire Phoenix Sword thought, and Princess Wuffing nodded. In fact, she was on good terms with Qin Feiyong and Madman. On one hand, it was because of the white-eyed wolf. On the other hand, it was because she valued their character. Although in the eyes of the enemy, they were ruthless and arrogant, in the eyes of friends, they were loyal and righteous. You might not notice it at first, but if you were willing to get along with them, you would slowly discover a unique charm in them. This was the charm of a person's personality. Longhu Mountain Range. This mountain range was very large, and one couldn't see the end. In the center of the mountain range, there were two particularly tall peaks. One was shaped like a giant dragon, and the other was shaped like a giant tiger. The two peaks stood opposite each other, forming a scene of dragons and tigers fighting. This was the meeting point of the Feng people. Longhu Mountain Range was about 2 years' journey from the swamp. Qin Feiyong's group of 4 arrived at Longhu Mountain Range without any danger. Along the way, they coincidentally snatched a law miniature from a purple gold skeleton. But it wasn't the strongest law, it was the law of thunder. Qin Feiyong naturally didn't need the law of thunder, so he directly gave it to Madman. Madman had already grasped 2 law miniatures. They were the law of slaughter and the law of thunder. Princess Wuffing, on the other hand, only possessed a miniature version of the law of fire. As for Qin Feiyong, he had the laws of life and death, the laws of lightning, and the laws of war. Actually, these law miniatures were already enough for them to cultivate. This was because even if one obtained the epitome of a law, it would still take a very long time to comprehend the ultimate profundity. However, since he came to the Sky Bell Divine Treasury, this treasure land, he naturally couldn't miss out on the good fortune that could be encountered anywhere. And the significance of the Heavenly Bell Divine Treasure was to search for opportunities. It seems unrealistic for you to cultivate here. After all, you only have 1,000 years. Therefore, whether it was the people from the various forbidden zones or Qin Feiyong and company, they all planned to first find enough nomological miniatures and then slowly cultivate after leaving the Heaven Bell Divine Treasure. 1,000 years was a very short period of time for people at their level. In the blink of an eye, it might have already passed. As such, every day was precious. The blood ancestor slowed down and looked at the mountains in front of him. After confirming for a moment, he said, "Yes, the Longhu Mountain Range is right ahead. It has been almost 18 years since I entered the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. I wonder if the Patriarch is still waiting for me here?" Princess Wuffing whispered, "It's only been 12 years. If we are unlucky and randomly teleported to a further place, let alone 12 years, I'm afraid we won't be able to meet here even if it takes 50 or 60 years. So, even if your clansmen take action, they will definitely leave 1 or 2 people in the Longhu Mountain Range to wait for everyone." The blood ancestor said, "I hope so." Princess Wuffing nodded and flew towards the Longhu Mountain Range. At the same time, below, at the edge of the mountain range, there was a small valley. An old man in a fiery red robe was sitting cross-legged. One could see that his hair was disheveled, his clothes were tattered, and there were many wounds on his body. His tattered robe was stained with blood. At this moment, he was sitting in the valley, seemingly recuperating. Just as Qin Feiyong's group entered the sky above the mountain range, the old man immediately opened his eyes and looked up at Qin Feiyong's group. "Your Highness." The old man's eyes immediately locked onto Princess Wuffing, and his blood-stained face was full of joy. "Daifuku?" Hearing the old man's voice, Princess Wuffing was stunned and hurriedly stopped. She lowered her head and looked at the valley. When she saw the old man in the valley, She was immediately overjoyed. That's right. This old man was Princess Huofeng's guardian, Daifuku. Daifuku came back to his senses and hurriedly flew into the air and landed in front of Princess Huofeng. He looked up and down at the Princess Huofeng and said happily, "Your Highness, it's good that you're fine. I've made you worry." Princess Huofeng smiled apologetically. "It's my duty." Daifuku waved his hand and looked at Qin Feiyong in frenzy. He cupped his hands and smiled. "It must be the two of you who have taken care of Her Highness." "Thank you. It's fine." Qin Feiyong waved his hand. "This is..." Daifuku looked at the blood ancestor with a trace of suspicion in his eyes. "You don't even know me?" The blood ancestor was stunned. It seemed that he was just a small figure in the Feng people. "Ancestor?" Daifuku muttered. Someone who could call himself an ancestor must have a powerful background. But why had he never seen him before? Princess Huofeng said, "Daifuku, let me introduce you. This is one of the 3 famous leaders of the human race, Senior Blood Ancestor." Blood Ancestor? Daifuku was stunned. Suddenly, his eyes trembled and he hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, sir." As a member of the Feng people, even if he hadn't seen him with his own eyes, he often heard the name of the Blood Ancestor. He never expected that the old man in blood-red clothes in front of him was actually the old devil who terrified people back then, the Blood Ancestor. "Rise." The Blood Ancestor waved his hand. Daifuku smiled at the Blood Ancestor respectfully, then looked at Princess Huofeng and whispered, "Your Highness, let's talk in private." Princess Huofeng was slightly stunned and said suspiciously, "We're not outsiders. If you have anything to say, just say it." Daifuku saw that Qin Feiyong and the other 2 were also looking at him suspiciously, so he couldn't help but smile apologetically. He looked at Princess Huofeng and said secretly, "Your Highness, it won't take long." "Okay." Princess Huofeng nodded helplessly and looked at Qin Feiyong and the other 2. She smiled apologetically and said, "Sorry, please wait for us for a while." "Go ahead." Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. Since he didn't want them to listen, he wouldn't force them. Daifuku took Princess Huofeng and flew over a giant peak deep in the mountains. "Can't you transmit your voice? Is there a need to go so far?" The mad scientist pouted. "Since you don't want us to know, then it's naturally the Feng people's secret. The farther we are, the safer we will feel." Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and landed on a mountain next to the valley below. He looked around curiously and chatted with the mad scientist and the Blood Ancestor. Above the giant peak, Daifuku stopped and turned to Princess Huofeng. He frowned and said, "Princess, why are you with the Blood Ancestor? Do you know how dangerous this is?" "No. We've been getting along well along the way." Princess Huofeng shook her head. "How is that possible? He's the Blood Ancestor. Tell me honestly, did he bully you?" Daifuku asked. "He really didn't. Besides, with Qin Feiyong and the mad scientist, he can't bully me." Princess Huofeng was helpless. "Are you sure?" Daifuku still didn't dare to believe it, because back then, the Blood Ancestor and the Feng people were opponents. "I'm sure." Princess Huofeng nodded. "That's good." Daifuku heaved a sigh of relief. "Don't tell me you called me over to talk about this?" Princess Huofeng was suspicious. "Of course not. I want to say that it's best to let them leave now, because you also know that we have already formed an alliance with the dragons and Kirans. Also, Lord Feng Ho personally instructed us to get rid of Qin Feiyong if there's a chance. If the clansmen see that not only are you with them, but you also brought them to the rendezvous point, they will definitely be angry." Daifuku said worriedly. "No, they have helped me too much along the way. How can I burn the bridge after crossing it? Besides, I have an agreement with them." Princess Huofeng shook her head. "What agreement?" Daifuku was surprised. Princess Huofeng hesitated and shook her head. "I can't reveal it for the time being. You can't even tell me?" Daifuku frowned. "I can't. In short, if it weren't for Qin Feiyong and the others, I would have died in the hands of Qi Xiong and the others. No matter what, I can't repay kindness with enmity." Princess Huofeng said. "What? Qi Xiong?" Daifuku was shocked. "That's right. Not long after entering the Skybell Divine Treasury, I met Qi Yefeng and the Silver Dragons. Princess Huafeng briefly explained how Qi Xiong and Qi Yefeng plotted against her and the Silver Dragons. Bastards! We clearly agreed to form an alliance, but they actually plotted against us behind our backs. Da Fu was furious when he heard this. Don't you understand them? A bunch of selfish people. The so-called alliance can't withstand the test of benefits. That's why I chose to go with Qin Feiyong and the others. After all, no matter what, Qin Feiyong and the others won't plot against me behind my back, Princess Huafeng said disdainfully. Daifuku frowned and said, although Qi Xiong and the others are indeed hateful, how are you going to explain when they meet up with our clansmen? How am I going to explain? Just tell them the truth. Princess Huafeng shrugged. I'm afraid that even if I tell them the truth, they won't buy it. Although Qin Feiyong has a sovereign divine weapon and the blood ancestor, almost all of our clansmen have arrived. If they really fight, Qin Feiyong and the others will be doomed. Daifuku said worriedly, so you're thinking about their safety. Princess Huafeng suddenly understood. It seemed that Daifuku also had a good impression of Qin Feiyong and the mad scientist. Then she shook her head and said with a wry smile, Daifuku, you've been with Qin Feiyong and the mad scientist for so long. Is that all you know about them? Huh. Daifuku looked at Princess Huafeng. What did she mean? Their current strength has reached an extremely terrifying level. Not to mention our Phoenix clan that has already suffered heavy losses. Even if we were at our peak, they wouldn't be afraid. Princess Huafeng shook her head. Chapter 3726. So strong? Daifuku was shocked. One had to know that this time, the Feng people had entered the Skybell Divine Treasure with 10 reclusive old antiques and 10 sovereign divine weapons. In addition, there were 12 Patriarch-level super experts. Such a force was not enough to deter Qin Feiyong? Wait a minute. What was the loss of soldiers? You said that almost all of our clansmen have rushed here. Is that true? Princess Huafeng asked with a smile. Daifuku said, other than Bing Runing, the 5 sovereign divine weapons of the Ice Phoenix clan, and a few super experts of the Ice Phoenix clan have indeed rushed here? But you don't know that Bing Runing and a few super experts of the Ice Phoenix clan have died in the hands of Qin Feiyong. Princess Huafeng said, what? Daifuku was shocked and asked, does that mean that the Ice Phoenix sword, a sovereign divine weapon, has fallen into his hands? Princess Huafeng said, the Ice Phoenix sword has indeed fallen into Qin Feiyong's hands and has submitted to Qin Feiyong. However, the other 4 sovereign divine weapons are with me. With you? Daifuku was surprised. Yes. Originally, Qin Feiyong did want to subdue them, but in the end, he did not do so for my sake. Not only did he not do so, but he also made the 4 sovereign divine weapons swear a blood oath to serve me as their master. Moreover, Qin Feiyong also gave me a miniature of the Law of Fire. Princess Huafeng said. This, Daifuku was dumbfounded. Swear a blood oath to serve Her Highness as their master? Didn't that mean that the Ice Phoenix clan did not even have a single sovereign divine weapon? What was more shocking was that there was a miniature of the Law of Fire. Qin Feiyong was really generous. Anyone who knew about the law's miniature form would know its value. It could definitely be called a priceless treasure. The matter of the Ice Phoenix sword submitting is already destined, so it's useless to say anything now. Rather than wasting time looking for Qin Feiyong, I might as well make good use of this opportunity and find a few more sovereign divine weapons in the Skybell Divine Treasury. Princess Huafeng said, that makes sense. Daifuku nodded, but said worriedly, however, if the clansmen were to know that the Ice Phoenix sword had fallen into the hands of Qin Feiyong and the others, then even if we were to step forward to persuade them, it would be useless. It's all right. Qin Feiyong will have the means to suppress them, but don't worry, Qin Feiyong promised me that he wouldn't harm their lives. Princess Huafeng said, that's good. Daifuku heaved a sigh of relief. When he first heard that Qin Feiyong would suppress the people of the Feng people, he was really shocked. Wait. Suddenly, Princess Huafeng sized up Daifuku from head to toe and asked suspiciously, why are you covered in injuries? A trace of anger immediately appeared on Daifuku's face, but he immediately concealed it and laughed. It's nothing big. It's just that a few days ago, I accidentally bumped into a few skeletons and was injured by them. Skeleton? Princess Huofeng was startled and asked doubtfully, "What skeleton?" "It's just a few human-shaped skeletons." Daifuku laughed. "So it's like that." Princess Huofeng nodded in realization. "It's all a small problem." Daifuku laughed. Princess Huofeng rolled her eyes at him, turned around to look at the void behind her, and was slightly startled. Where were Qin Feiyang and the other two? So they were there. Soon, she saw Qin Feiyang and the other two at the top of the mountain below. No. Just as she was about to call out to Qin Feiyang and the other two, she frowned slightly and turned to look at the injuries on Daifuku's body. "What is it?" Daifuku's heart was drumming, as if he was very guilty. "Didn't I let the divine phoenix spear follow you? How could a few mere skeletons hurt you? Also, why haven't you recovered from the injuries you received a few days ago? Furthermore, your hair is disheveled and your clothes are tattered. It's as if you have just finished a great battle. Daifuku, you're not telling me the truth, right? The injuries on your body were clearly caused not long ago." Princess Huofeng raised her eyebrows. Daifuku's gaze was somewhat evasive and shook his head. "Your Highness, it's really nothing." The more Princess Huofeng looked at him, the more she felt that something was wrong, and said angrily, "What exactly is going on? Tell me." "Your Highness, I know that your Highness is concerned about me, but it's really just a small matter. It doesn't matter much." Daifuku stammered for a moment and smiled. "Small matter?" Princess Huofeng looked at the flustered Daifuku and snorted. "I think this matter is not simple. Are you unwilling to tell me?" Daifuku stammered. "Old thing, didn't we ask you to patrol around the mountain range? You're actually hiding here and slacking off?" At this moment, a stern voice sounded from the depths of the mountain range. Daifuku's face changed. Princess Huofeng's eyebrows also raised. On the mountain top beside the valley, Qin Feiyang and the other two who were chatting could not help but be stunned when they heard the shout. They then looked up suspiciously. Why did the atmosphere seem a little strange? As the voice fell, two figures rushed out from the depths of the mountain range. They were two middle-aged men. One was thin, and the other was fat. They had a head of white crystal-like hair, and there was a bone-piercing cold current around them. They looked domineering. Princess Huofeng? When they saw Princess Huofeng standing next to Daifuku, the two men were slightly stunned and quickly put away their domineering attitude. "Wu-er, when did you come?" "We were worried sick all these years, afraid that something would happen to you." The two men came up to her and put on a kind and respectful attitude. Wu-er greets the two uncles. Princess Huofeng bowed. "We're family. There's no need to be so polite." "How is it? How was the journey?" the two men asked with concern. "It's fine." Princess Huofeng nodded. "It seems that we were worried for nothing." The two men chuckled. Princess Huofeng glanced at Daifuku next to her without batting an eyelid. She found that when Daifuku looked at the two men, there was a trace of anger in his eyes. Could it be that these two men bullied Daifuku? Princess Huofeng asked suspiciously. "Uncles, just now you said that you let Daifuku patrol? What patrol?" "It's like this. We were worried that skeletons or people from other forces would break into the Lunghu mountain range. So we let Daifuku walk around more when he has nothing to do." The two men smiled and seemed to unintentionally give Daifuku a threatening look. "Is that so?" Princess Huofeng looked at Daifuku. Daifuku looked at the two men and finally looked at Princess Huofeng. He nodded and said, "Yes." The two of them immediately smiled from ear to ear. Princess Huofeng raised her eyebrows and said, "Then tell me, how did you get this body?" A woman's intuition was very accurate. She felt that Daifuku's injury must be related to these two men, because the two men's attitude towards Daifuku was too bad before. It was only when they looked at her that their attitude changed. "It's really nothing." Daifuku waved his hand. Princess Huofeng frowned. She wanted to help Daifuku vent his anger, but Daifuku was unwilling to tell the truth, so she couldn't do anything. Suddenly, she thought of Qin Feiyang. Couldn't Qin Feiyang read other people's memories? If it was someone else, she wouldn't get to the bottom of it. But Daifuku was different. Daifuku and Xiaofu, the two brothers, had been protecting her since she was born. To her, the two of them were not her guardians, nor were they her followers. They were her closest family. Her family had been wronged, so of course she wouldn't let it go. It better not be you. Princess Wuffing looked at the two men and said, Daifuku, if you don't tell the truth, I'll let Qin Feiyong read your memory. What? Daifuku's eyes trembled. If he read his memory, wouldn't he be unable to hide anything? Princess Wuffing said secretly, It's not too late to tell me now. Daifuku looked at the two men opposite him, then looked at Princess Wuffing and sighed. Your Highness, I'll tell you. But please don't hold them accountable. The two men heard this and couldn't help but be stunned. What did that mean? Could it be? The two men immediately looked at Daifuku, and the threat in their eyes became more intense. Don't look at me with such threatening eyes. I don't want to tell you either. Because I don't want to destroy the unity of the Feng people because of these things. But you've gone too far. Now you're threatening me. Daifuku glared at the two men. What nonsense are you talking about? The two men said angrily. Princess Wuffing's eyes flashed with a cold light. It really had something to do with these two men. The two men noticed that Princess Wuffing's eyes were not right, and their hearts couldn't help but tremble. They quickly smiled and said, Wu-er, don't listen to his nonsense. He's definitely trying to sow discord. Sow discord? Princess Wuffing clenched her hands and looked at the two men gloomily. Anyone can sow discord except for Daifuku. Besides, he hasn't said it yet. How do you know he's trying to sow discord? Are you guys guilty? We? The two men's faces were extremely ugly. As the super experts of the Feng people and Princess Wuffing's elders, they dared to talk to them like that in public. Did they have any respect for their elders? Daifuku, speak. Don't leave out a single word. Princess Wuffing said in a deep voice. Here's what happened. Because of the grudge between us and Bing Runing, the people of the Ice Phoenix clan don't like me since I came to the Longhu mountain range. They'll make trouble for me whenever they have the chance. Not long ago, they came to make trouble for me again, and they're even worse than before. They asked me to keep an eye on you in the future and stop going against the Ice Phoenix clan. Otherwise, don't blame them for not caring about their clan. They even said that you're a traitor and colluded with Qin Feiyong. Maybe you've even received some benefits from Qin Feiyong. What's more, they even said that your Highness might have betrayed the Feng people and become Qin Feiyong's spy. Of course I was angry when I heard that. You can humiliate me, but you can't slander your Highness. So I argued with them. When they saw that I dared to talk back to them, they hurt me. Daifuku said angrily. They only hurt you? You were clearly tortured. Princess Wuffing said angrily. Chapter 37:27. When the two heard this, they hurriedly looked at Princess Wuffing and said, Wu-er, don't listen to his nonsense. Shut up. Princess Wuffing yelled angrily. The two's expressions froze. Daifuku has never lied, let alone me. But this time, he would rather swallow this grievance than tell me the truth. Do you know why? He's not stupid, and he's not afraid of you. He just doesn't want to destroy the unity of the Feng people. But what about your Ice Phoenix clan? It was Bing Runing at first. If Qin Feiyong hadn't saved me, I would have died in Bing Runing's hands. All right, for the sake of the big picture, my father and I didn't pursue this matter. Even when I had the chance to kill Bing Runing on White Crane Island, I didn't do it. Then, it was Bing Chongtian. As the clan leader of the Ice Phoenix clan, he actually came to kill a junior like me. To think that I usually call him uncle. Is this how he treats me? As the clan leader, is this all you've got? Now, it's the two of you who are making things difficult and humiliating the people around me. Don't you know that Daifuku is my family? Do you really think that the Fire Phoenix clan is easy to bully? Princess Wuffing glared at the two with a hint of killing intent in her eyes. The anger and resentment that had been accumulating in her heart finally exploded completely. Because she had tolerated the Ice Phoenix clan time and time again. She thought that her tolerance would more or less influence the Ice Phoenix clan, and they would be more restrained in the future. But she didn't expect that they would take a mile after taking an inch. The two of them looked at the angry Fire Phoenix eldest princess, and a trace of panic crept into their eyes. Princess Wuffing glanced at the two, then looked at Daifuku and asked, What about the Divine Phoenix Spear? Why didn't it help you? It's not the Divine Phoenix Spear's fault. Because I've already handed over the Divine Phoenix Spear after coming here, Daifuku said. Hand over the divine phoenix spear? Princess Wolfing was slightly stunned. She said in a low voice, "Don't lie to me. Did you hand it over on your own accord, or did they snatch it away?" "I'm not lying to you about this. To tell you the truth, Your Highness, we found 2 ruler-level divine weapons not long after we arrived at the Longhu mountain range. This is a good opportunity. Thus, the clan elders and ancestors asked me to hand the divine phoenix spear to them so that they could subdue the 2 ruler divine armaments. However, things didn't go as smoothly as we thought. I don't know where the other party found another sovereign divine weapon, but it's a total of 3 sovereign divine weapons. Right now, we only have the divine phoenix spear, the fire phoenix saber, and the fire phoenix divine axe. That's why we've been dragging it out until now." Daifuku sighed. 3 sovereign weapons. Princess Wolfing was shocked. She asked, "If that's the case, then the clan heads, elders, and ancestors are subduing the 3 sovereign divine weapons right now?" "That's right. Right now, only the 2 of us are guarding the Longhu mountain range." Daifuku nodded. "I see." Princess Wolfing nodded in realization. She looked at the 2 members of the Ice Phoenix clan and said coldly, "I asked you to guard this place to wait for the rest of us who haven't arrived yet. I didn't ask you to take advantage of the situation to bully Daifuku." "Wooer, don't be too presumptuous. No matter what, we're still elders." Seeing that Princess Wolfing wasn't going to give up so easily, the 2 of them used their status as elders to intimidate Princess Wolfing. However, they didn't know. The current Fire Phoenix eldest princess was most disgusted with the use of the word elder to pressure her. "You know that you're my elders. But what you're doing, do you have the demeanor of an elder? I'm telling you now. From now on, the Fire Phoenix clan won't tolerate it anymore. If anyone dares to bully me, I'll pay them back double." As soon as she finished speaking, Princess Wolfing exuded a monstrous, murderous aura. "Are you going to offend your superiors? Be careful not to be punished by the heavens." The 2 of them immediately shouted angrily, panicking to the extreme. They weren't afraid of Princess Wolfing, but of Princess Wolfing's sovereign divine weapons, because they knew that Princess Wolfing had 2 sovereign divine weapons by herself. "Princess." "No." Daifuku also hurriedly stopped Princess Wolfing. He really didn't want to see the scene of the Feng people fighting among themselves. "Daifuku, since I was young, you, Xiao Fu, and father have always taught me to look at the big picture in everything. I'll listen to you. No matter what happened in the past, I've always tolerated it. But now I realize that if we only know how to tolerate it, they'll be even more arrogant. They'll even ruthlessly throw our tolerance to the ground and trample on it wantonly. So, I don't want to tolerate it anymore, and I don't want to tolerate it anymore." Princess Wolfing shook her head. Her eyes filled with disappointment towards the Ice Phoenix clan. "Crazy, crazy. No wonder you can be so close to Qin Feiyong and the others. It turns out that you're all jackals of the same tribe." The 2 Ice Phoenix clan members roared, turned around, and began to flee. "Fuck. Who are you scolding?" When Madman heard this, his eyes flashed with killing intent. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but frown. The people of the Ice Phoenix clan really like to court death. Jackals of the same tribe? If I could choose, I'd rather choose to be with them than with selfish and stupid trash like you. Fire Phoenix sword. Kill them. Princess Wolfing shouted. Accompanied by a loud clang, the Fire Phoenix sword rushed out, and a terrifying sharpness suddenly rushed towards the 2. "Your Highness," Daifuku called out anxiously. But Princess Wolfing turned a deaf ear to him, and a murderous look appeared in her eyes. Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, "After being together for so long, this is the first time I've seen her show such strong murderous intent. From this, it can be seen that Daifuku and his brother are very important to her." After Madman said that, he laughed and said, "But you don't say. She really does look like a princess now. She does have a deterrent power." Qin Feiyong nodded. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly turned around and looked to the left. His pupils immediately shrank. Madman and the Blood Ancestor also looked up and frowned. He saw a group of people flying over in a grandiose manner. They seemed to be the elders and reclusive antiques of the Feng people. Looks like there's going to be a good show. Madman chuckled. The three of them had already concealed their auras, and now that the Fire Phoenix sword had appeared, they became the focus of the scene, so no one from the Foam people noticed them. Wooer. Fire Phoenix sword? There were a total of 17 people in that group. They all had injuries of varying degrees on their bodies. When the 17 people saw Princess Wolfing and the Fire Phoenix sword, they were slightly stunned. But before they could rejoice, they saw the Fire Phoenix sword charging toward the two people from the Ice Phoenix clan. Their expressions suddenly changed. Wooer, what are you doing? One of the red-haired elders shouted. Old man? Daifuku was shocked. He hurriedly looked at Princess Wolfing and shouted, Your Highness, your grandfather is back. Stop. It doesn't matter who comes, Princess Wolfing said coldly. Clang. The Fire Phoenix sword charged forward. The two people from the Ice Phoenix clan screamed on the spot, and their blood splattered across the sky. Seeing this scene, the 17 people were anxious and angry. What was this? How could they attack their elders? Whoosh. In a few seconds, the 17 people were all facing Princess Wolfing. The red-haired elder looked at the Fire Phoenix sword and then at Princess Wolfing. He frowned and said, Woo-er, what are you doing? Princess Wolfing took a deep breath and bowed to the red-haired elder. Woo-er pays her respects to Grandpa. Grandpa? Qin Feiyong and the madman looked at each other. She's actually this old thing's granddaughter? The blood ancestor was also surprised. You know him? Qin Feiyong and the madman looked at the blood ancestor suspiciously. Yes. He was the previous patriarch of the Fire Phoenix clan. What was his name again? Right, Huadahong. Back then, in my eyes, he was just a small fry. I didn't even bother to look at him. I didn't expect that after all these years, not only did my strength improve so much, even my granddaughter has grown up. The blood ancestor sighed. Huadahong. Qin Feiyong and the madman looked at the red-haired old man. This should be one of the reclusive old antiques of the Feng people. Huadahong looked at Princess Wolfing and said angrily, Answer Grandpa's question. Why did you kill them? At the same time, the Ice Phoenix clan had 5 reclusive old antiques and 2 elders. They all stared at Princess Wolfing angrily. The Ice Phoenix and the Fire Phoenix were actually very easy to distinguish. The people of the Fire Phoenix clan basically all had fiery red hair. The members of the Ice Phoenix clan, on the other hand, had long snow-white hair. Their auras were also easy to distinguish. As for the former, he could feel a burning aura from afar. The latter emitted a cold current. Princess Wolfing said, Grandpa, you can't blame me. Look at Daifuku yourself. Everyone looked at Daifuku and couldn't help but frown when they saw the wounds all over his body. This is what they tortured him for. Princess Wolfing said, Nonsense. How could they torture Daifuku? Even if there was such a thing, Daifuku must have done something wrong. The 7 people of the Ice Phoenix clan said angrily, Daifuku must have done something wrong. What makes you think that it must be Daifuku's fault? Princess Wolfing was angry again. They hadn't even asked clearly, but they were already so sure that Daifuku had done something wrong. How could they be so self-righteous? Otherwise, why would they injure Daifuku? They can't be looking for trouble for no reason. The 7 people of the Ice Phoenix clan said angrily, Do you still need to ask? Don't you know what the Ice Phoenix clan is like? Princess Wolfing sneered. Impudent. Huadahong, do you see that? This is the good granddaughter you taught. She even dares to talk back to us elders. The 7 people looked at Huadahong and said angrily. Huadahong frowned. Elder? Now, other than the elders of the Fire Phoenix clan, no one is qualified to be my elder, including the Ice Phoenix clan. Fire Phoenix sword, kill all 7 of these old things for me. Princess Wolfing sneered and shouted. She was too lazy to explain to these people and waste her time. Chapter 37:28. What? The 7 members of the Ice Phoenix clan couldn't help but tremble upon hearing this. Even Huadahong and the other members of the Fire Phoenix clan were shocked, not to mention them. In their impression, Princess Wolfing had always been an obedient and sensible person who respected the old and loved the young. They didn't expect her to have such a ruthless side. As her closest family and clansmen, This was the first time they had seen the Fire Phoenix Great Princess fly into such a rage and make such a big fuss. Clang! The Fire Phoenix sword's godly aura shook everyone present. An elder of the Ice Phoenix clan suddenly trembled. He waved his hand, and the Fire Phoenix blade appeared. What? You want to use the Fire Phoenix clan's sovereign divine weapon against me? Princess Wolfing sneered. Although the Fire Phoenix blade was the Fire Phoenix clan's sovereign divine weapon, it was still in the Skybell divine treasure. Having a sovereign divine weapon could prevent many accidents. For example, if they accidentally got separated during a battle, they would have a higher chance of survival with a sovereign divine weapon. In addition, the Ice Phoenix clan's sovereign divine weapon didn't come to the meeting point. Therefore, Hua Dahong had let the elder of the Ice Phoenix clan take care of the Fire Phoenix blade. This elder's status in the Feng people was similar to Hua Dahong's. You dare to rebel? Do you still have us in your eyes? The elder of the Ice Phoenix clan said angrily. I'm rebelling? Bing Shengyuan, everyone has the right to criticize me, except you. Princess Wolfing sneered and looked at the Fire Phoenix blade. Fire Phoenix blade, come back. Clang. The Fire Phoenix blade, the only weapon the Ice Phoenix clan relied on, flew to Princess Wolfing's side. This made the 7 members of the Ice Phoenix clan extremely angry. One of the elders roared, if the Ice Phoenix clan's sovereign divine weapon was here, you wouldn't have the right to be so presumptuous. Is that so? Princess Wolfing sneered. With a thought, the profound ice divine hammer and the other 4 sovereign divine weapons appeared. Hua Dahong and the others were shocked. The 4 sovereign divine weapons were in Wu Er's hands? Meanwhile, Bing Shengyuan and the others were also stunned. Then, they were overjoyed. Wasn't this an opportunity right in front of them? Bing Shengyuan came back to his senses and immediately yelled at the profound ice divine hammer and the 4 ruler divine weapons. Take down this disrespectful junior. However, the 4 sovereign divine weapons remained motionless, as if they hadn't heard anything. What happened? Everyone was bewildered. How is it? With the profound ice divine hammer and the others around, I can still be impudent. Princess Wolfing sneered. What are you doing? Didn't you hear me? I order you to take her down immediately. Bing Shengyuan looked at the 4 ruler divine weapons and roared furiously. What right do you have to command a sovereign weapon? Is it because you are stronger than them? Or did you create them? How powerful are sovereign divine armaments? Yet, you people are acting as if it's only natural for them to work for you. What makes you think you're qualified to do that? Shouldn't we respect them? Princess Wolfing said angrily. The group of elders and reclusive antiques were rendered speechless. Indeed, whether it was the Feng people or the dragons and Kirins, they all felt that the sovereign divine weapons should listen to their orders. But in reality, what had they done for the sovereign divine weapons? What was their strength in front of the sovereign divine weapons? The sovereign divine weapons had been helping them all along, but they had never felt the slightest bit of gratitude. They felt that it was only right. Speechless? Ashamed? You only know how to take and not give. This is how you behave. By the way, I'm sorry, but the profound ice divine hammer and the others are now my companions. Princess Wolfing sneered and looked at the 4 ruler divine weapons. I feel annoyed just looking at them. Help me get rid of them. Clang! Clang! The 4 ruler divine weapons immediately attacked and killed the 7 members of the Ice Phoenix clan. At the scene, now, only the members of the Fire Phoenix clan were left. Seeing this scene, they couldn't calm down for a long time. After a long time, Hua Dahong came back to his senses and looked at the profound ice divine hammer and the 4 ruler divine weapons suspiciously. Then, he looked at Princess Wolfing and asked, Wu Er, what's going on with them? Grandfather, it's a long story, and we have to thank someone for this. Princess Wolfing smiled. Who? Hua Dahong was surprised. Daifuku heard this and couldn't help but feel nervous. They were about to talk about Qin Feiyang. How would everyone react? Princess Wolfing turned to look at the mountain. Hua Dahong and the others also looked suspiciously. When they saw Qin Feiyang and the other 2 on the mountain, their expressions changed drastically. Qin Feiyang, Madman Imo, it was actually them. At the same time, Qin Feiyang and the other two also stepped into the sky and walked toward the group of people. Hua Dahong quivered and looked at Princess Huafeng. Wooer, don't tell me you brought them here? I brought them here. Princess Huafeng nodded. You. Hua Dahong's eyes suddenly had a trace of anger. Dahong. Suddenly, next to him, a reclusive old antique pulled Hua Dahong's sleeve. This person's eyes were staring at the blood ancestor, his eyes full of surprise. What are you doing? Hua Dahong was angry. Without even thinking, he directly shook off the reclusive old antique's hand. Quickly look. That reclusive old antique looked at the blood ancestor, his eyes gradually trembling. Noticing this abnormality, not only Hua Dahong, but the others also looked up again. Boom. Immediately, Hua Dahong and the other reclusive old antiques felt like a bolt from the blue, rumbling in their minds. Wearing blood-red clothes, full of murderous aura, this face, this figure, isn't this one of the three great leaders of the human race, the blood ancestor? What's going on? Didn't the blood ancestor die long ago? The four old antiques rubbed their eyes hard, thinking that they were seeing things. The other six elders were surprised. Who was this blood-red clothed old man? How could he make the elders so surprised? Humph, are you surprised that I'm not dead? The blood ancestor snorted coldly. It's really him. Hua Dahong's face suddenly changed, and he roared, "Prepare for battle." The three reclusive old antiques were also facing a great enemy. Who the hell is he? One of the elders couldn't help but ask. Blood ancestor, Hua Dahong said in a deep voice. What? He's the blood ancestor? The elders' eyes trembled as they looked at the blood ancestor walking towards them. Their bodies and minds trembled uncontrollably. This was a real demon king, an existence comparable to Feng Ho. How could they not be nervous when such a peerless demon king appeared? Grandpa, don't be nervous. They're not enemies. Princess Huafeng saw that the situation was not good and hurriedly said, Are you stupid? The other party is the blood ancestor. How can he not be our enemy? Hua Dahong shouted angrily. This silly granddaughter must have been used by Qin Feiyang and the blood ancestor. Clang. Accompanied by a phoenix cry, a fiery red battle axe appeared, and a terrifying divine power swept in all directions. This was the fifth sovereign divine weapon of the Fire Phoenix clan, the Fire Phoenix Divine Axe. Hua Dahong grabbed the divine axe and shouted, Fight! Clang. As Hua Dahong shouted, another reclusive old antique also waved his hand and summoned the divine phoenix spear. The remaining two old antiques and a few clan elders also emitted terrifying and monstrous power of law from their bodies. Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist raised their eyebrows slightly when they saw this scene. Although Feng Ho had ordered them to get rid of him if they had the chance, there was no need to make such a big fuss the moment they met. A group of ants in the past actually dares to draw their swords against this ancestor? Don't you know that this is an unforgivable act of foolishness? The blood ancestor laughed as his blood-red eyes flashed with a cold light. Senior blood ancestor, please calm down. Princess Huafeng was extremely anxious. Although she had expected this to happen, when it really happened, she still didn't know how to deal with it. Dahong, this is a good opportunity. Although Qin Feiyang is powerful and has the protection of a sovereign divine weapon, we now have 9 sovereign divine weapons. As for the blood ancestor, if his strength has recovered to its peak, then he won't be able to enter the Skybell divine treasure. Therefore, I dare say that his strength is not as strong as before. They are all powerful enemies in the future. If we don't get rid of them now, there will be endless trouble in the future. Besides, Feng Ho also has orders. We can't disobey Lord Feng Ho's orders. One of the reclusive old antiques said telepathically. Hearing this, Hua Dahong made a prompt decision and shouted, Attack! Clang! The Fire Phoenix Divine Axe and the Divine Phoenix Spear, the 2 sovereign divine weapons, immediately attacked Qin Feiyang's group. Wooer, quickly help. After Hua Dahong said that, he led a few old antiques and a few clan elders and followed the 2 sovereign divine weapons to attack Qin Feiyang's group. Grandfather! Princess Huafeng shouted anxiously. As expected, Daifuku sighed. They really don't know what death is. It seems that we have no choice but to attack now. Madman's eyes flashed with killing intent. Clang. 8 sovereign divine weapons instantly charged out of Qin Feiyang's body. Why did he say that it was 8 sovereign divine weapons? Because the castle didn't appear. What? Ice Phoenix Sword, Golden Dragon Spear, White Dragon Sword, Black Dragon Mirror. What's going on? Aren't these the sovereign divine weapons of the Feng people and the dragons? Why are they with them? Moreover, there are 2 sovereign divine weapons that we have never seen before. The group of people's expressions changed. Princess Huofeng didn't make a move. How could the Divine Phoenix Spear and the Fire Phoenix Divine Axe block the 8 sovereign divine weapons, the Sword of the Grim Reaper? With a loud crack, the 2 sovereign divine weapons shattered on the spot and blasted into the ground in the distance like 2 meteors. They really don't know what death is. At the same time, the Blood Ancestor smiled sinisterly. The law of death surged out and activated instant time. He instantly landed in front of the 2 reclusive old antiques and reached out with both hands. This power of death, the group of people's expressions changed again. Chapter 37-29. The Blood Ancestor was like a demon god as he grabbed a reclusive old man with one hand. The terrifying power of death poured into their bodies like a tide. Ah! Accompanied by a miserable cry, the 2 of them exploded in the void, and blood stained the sky. Stop it! Princess Huofeng roared. But how could the Blood Ancestor stop? The power of death, with him as the center, rolled in all directions. Several elders were drowned by the power of death and died on the spot. Then, he grabbed Huadahong and another reclusive old man by the neck, and the 2 of them were hung in the void like little chicks. So strong. The 2 of them were ashen-faced. Was this the strength of the Blood Ancestor? It was not any weaker than before. Pay the price for your stupid actions. The Blood Ancestor laughed. The other reclusive old man was drowned by the power of death, and his body and soul were directly shattered in the void. His method was extremely bloody. Huadahong, back then, you were a little reptile who was scared to death when you saw me. Now, you actually dare to attack me. I really don't know where you borrowed the courage from. The Blood Ancestor looked at Huadahong again. Apart from Princess Huofeng and Daifuku, Huadahong was the only one left among the Feng people. Like the dragons, it could be announced that they were all wiped out. Princess Huofeng saw this and bowed. Senior Blood Ancestor, he is my grandfather. Please be merciful. Originally, she wanted to use the sovereign divine weapon to deter him. But thinking of the Blood Ancestor's temper, if she used the sovereign divine weapon to deter him, it would probably be counterproductive. In short, the Blood Ancestor was a person who could be persuaded by reason but not by force. If you want to use force, he will be stronger, harder, and more terrifying than you. The Blood Ancestor glanced at Princess Huofeng, then looked at Huadahong and sneered. You should be glad that you have such a sensible granddaughter. Otherwise, even if the gods come down now, they won't be able to save you. After saying that, the Blood Ancestor let go of his hand. Thank you, Senior Blood Ancestor. Princess Huofeng smiled gratefully, ran to Huadahong, and asked with concern, Grandfather, are you okay? I'm fine. Huadahong waved his hand and took a few deep breaths to calm the fear in his heart. He looked up at the Blood Ancestor, his eyes filled with dread. Whoosh! At this moment, the broken Divine Phoenix Spear and Fire Phoenix Divine Axe also flew over. Looking at the 8 sovereign divine weapons in front of Qin Feiyang, they were also shocked. Unexpectedly, this young human actually already possessed such a terrifying foundation. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the sovereign weapons returned to his sea of energy. Looking at Huadahong, he smiled and said, Senior, would you mind listening to our conversation? Speak. Huadahong smiled bitterly. What else could he do? What else could he do? What made him feel the most helpless was that he didn't know what kind of magic potion Qin Feiyang and Madman Emo had fed his granddaughter, making her keep speaking up for them. We really didn't come to Longhu Mountain Range to become your enemy. Furthermore, we can be said to be completely devoted to this granddaughter of yours. Of course, we will also remember her kindness to us. So, no matter what happens in the future, at least for now, I really don't want us to fight to the death in the Skybell Divine Treasure. Qin Feiyang smiled and said. Hua Dahong turned his head and looked at Princess Wufeng. Princess Wufeng nodded. Hua Dahong sighed as he looked at Qin Feiyang and Madman and said, But have you ever thought about what kind of punishment Wu will face when she returns to the Phoenix Nest? If you really want what's best for her, you should stay away from her. We'll talk about the future later. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. You're quite carefree. But what about Wu? The clan elders and ancestors all died at the hands of you and Wu. Right now, the souls they left outside might have already gone to complain to the Phoenix Empress. If Feng Ho is furious, not only will Wu be punished, I'm afraid Wu-er's father and I won't be able to get away with it. Worse, we might even lose our lives. Hua Dahong shook his head and sighed. His old face was filled with worry. Daifuku was the same. If such a day really comes, this junior won't just sit by and watch. Furthermore, Feng Ho only cares about her own benefits. When the time comes, bring back more law miniatures or sovereign divine weapons. Maybe she won't punish you and might even praise you. Qin Feiyang smiled and said. Hua Dahong pondered for a while and shook his head. I hope so, grandfather. Everything will be fine when the time comes. Don't worry so much, okay? Furthermore, Qin Feiyang and the others have indeed helped me a lot. The Mystic Ice Divine Bow and the 4 sovereign divine weapons were subdued by Qin Feiyang. They have already made a blood oath and will only listen to me. Right now, even Lord Feng Ho can't control them. Also, Qin Feiyang gave me a Law of Fire miniatures. Princess Wufeng said, Blood oath? Law of Fire miniatures? Hua Dahong was shocked. Yes. Princess Wufeng nodded and said secretly, To tell you the truth, the dragons have also been wiped out. Only Long Chun is left now. Long Chun doesn't have any hostility towards Qin Feiyang and the others. Even Long Chun doesn't care about the Dragon King's orders. Why are you so stubborn? Furthermore, there's a good saying. When a general is outside, he won't obey military orders. Especially when we're fighting with Qin Feiyang and the others in the Skybell Divine Treasure, it's better to work together and find more Law of Fire miniatures and sovereign divine weapons. This way, when we face the Divine Kingdom in the future, the Feng people will have more confidence. For this somewhat stubborn old man in front of her, Princess Fire Phoenix could be said to be earnestly persuading him. Sigh. When Hua Dahong heard this, he couldn't help but let out a sigh. He raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two, and nodded. All right, let's cooperate, but you can't bully others too much. In the future, the divine objects we obtain must be divided equally. Of course. Qin Feiyang smiled. Wouldn't it have been better if you had done this earlier? You had to force this ancestor to take action. Not only did I wipe out your Feng people, but I also damaged the harmony between us. What a loss, isn't it? Blood ancestor sneered. Hua Dahong laughed bitterly. He thought that this was an opportunity to easily get rid of these 3 people, but who would have thought that the other party would have so many sovereign divine weapons? What's going on with the Ice Phoenix Sword and the Golden Dragon Spear? Suddenly, Hua Dahong looked at Princess Wufeng and asked. Obviously, they have all submitted to Qin Feiyang. Princess Wufeng smiled bitterly. What? Hua Dahong was dumbfounded. It's all Bing Runing's fault. Why did she have to provoke this fierce person? In the future, if Feng Ho really wants to pursue this matter, Bing Runing will not be able to escape punishment for losing the Ice Phoenix Sword. Princess Wufeng secretly snorted. It seems that the dragons have suffered a greater loss than us. When the Dragon King finds out about this, he will probably go crazy with anger. Hua Dahong shook his head. Qin Feiyang looked at Hua Dahong and asked, Old Senior, I saw that all of you returned with injuries. Did you encounter some trouble? We did encounter some trouble. Not long after we arrived here, we found 2 sovereign divine weapons. Originally, we were confident that we would win and went to suppress them, but we didn't expect that they would call for another helper. This helper is also a sovereign divine weapon. All these years, we have been entangled with them, Hua Dahong said irritably. Haven't you subdued it yet? Princess Huafeng asked. No. Hua Dahong shook his head. That's impossible. The Fire Phoenix Saber, the Divine Phoenix Spear, and the Divine Phoenix Axe are 3 sovereign divine weapons. In addition, you and the other 3 ancestors should not have been entangled for so long. Princess Huafeng frowned. Although we all have ultimate intents, we can only help from the side. If those 3 sovereign divine weapons want to escape, the Fire Phoenix Saber and the others won't be able to stop them. Moreover, they also have other helpers. Hua Dahong said. Other helpers? Qin Feiyong and the others were surprised. Yes, 2 powerhouses that have condensed physical bodies and 10 purple gold skeletons. As for the other skeletons, there are too many to count. When we returned, they chased us for half a day. Hua Dahong shook his head and sighed. Condensed physical bodies. Qin Feiyong and the others looked at each other. The blood ancestor had said that skeletons that had condensed physical bodies were existences that had grasped the ultimate intents of an ordinary law. Where are they now? Madman asked. Not far. In a mountain in the southeast direction. It's at most a day's journey. Hua Dahong said. A day's journey. Madman's eyes flickered as he looked at Hua Dahong and said, The Feng people only have the 3 of you left now. No one will come to the Longhu mountain range again. Why don't we kill our way over now? That's right. Hua Dahong slapped his head. Now that the Feng people's sovereign divine weapons had arrived, coupled with the 8 sovereign divine weapons in the hands of Qin Feiyong and the others, wouldn't it be easy to suppress those 3 sovereign divine weapons? Hua Dahong took out a divine life pill and threw it into his mouth. He looked at the others and said, Then let's go. We must take them down and make up for the losses of the Feng people. Since they had lost the Ice Phoenix sword, they naturally had to make up for it. Then lead the way. Blood Ancestor's eyes flickered. The 3 sovereign divine weapons were a force that couldn't be underestimated. Once they were subdued, the success rate of rescuing the 3 sovereign divine weapons would undoubtedly be higher. Whoosh! Immediately, under Hua Dahong's lead, the group sped toward the southeast. A day passed in a flash. The next day, a huge mountain entered the sight of Qin Feiyong and the others. Looking around, there were traces of battle left behind everywhere, and skeletons could be clearly seen in the broken mountains. As far as the eye could see, there were no less than 10,000 skeletons. There were skeletons of fierce beasts. There were also human-shaped skeletons. There were white skeletons, red skeletons, and golden skeletons. Just ahead, Hua Dahong pointed ahead and said in a deep voice, So many skeletons? Kiki, this is really a gift from the heavens to this ancestor. Blood Ancestor smiled coldly. Activating the instant time, he took the lead and charged forward. The law of slaughter roared out and surged towards the skeletons in front of him. Chapter 3730. What is he trying to do? Hua Dahong and Daifuku were bewildered. Qin Feiyong, Madman, and Princess Huafeng looked at each other and couldn't help but smile bitterly. What else could he do? Of course, he was devouring the souls of these skeletons. But to be honest, the Blood Ancestor's method was really enviable. He didn't even need to comprehend the ultimate meaning himself. Who is it? As soon as the Blood Ancestor's murderous aura appeared, the skeletons in the mountain in front suddenly became chaotic. The person who wants your lives. The Blood Ancestor laughed. The law of slaughter turned into a blood-red sea, covering the sky and the sun. Any skeleton that was submerged by the law of slaughter was instantly crushed. Even the golden skeleton couldn't resist. And between the Blood Ancestor's eyebrows, a blood-red vortex appeared. A bloody hand stretched out and crazily grew, covering the sky and the earth. All the souls of the undead were devoured. There's actually such a method? Daifuku looked at this scene in horror. Sure enough, he's an out-and-out old devil, Hua Dahong whispered. Obviously, he wasn't too unfamiliar with this method. Who was so blind to come here and cause trouble? Accompanied by a purple golden divine light, purple gold skeletons came out of the mountain one by one. Just in time. Hand over the souls of the undead to me. The Blood Ancestor went crazy. What? His law of slaughter seems to have reached the level of the ultimate meaning. Looking at the murderous blood ancestor, the purple gold skeletons that rushed out immediately turned around and fled for their lives. Hee. How could the blood ancestor let these purple gold skeletons go so easily? One had to know. The undead souls of the purple gold skeletons contained far more law of slaughter than the golden skeletons. For him, the purple gold skeletons were the real tonic. In an instant, the blood ancestor chased after them like lightning. The law of slaughter swept out, crushing the group of purple gold skeletons and devouring the souls of the undead. Awesome! The blood ancestor's face was full of enjoyment, as if he was smoking a cigarette. You actually dare to come here and slaughter people? You must be tired of living. As the two of them roared, the man and beast flew over murderously. Their auras shook the heavens and earth. They are the two experts who have condensed their physical bodies, Wadahong said. Qin Feiyang and the other three looked over. That person was a middle-aged man. He was 3 meters tall, and his upper body was naked. His skin was dark and his muscles were as hard as fists. They were filled with explosive power. That was a living giant. As for that ferocious beast, it was an enormous tiger several tens of meters tall. Its entire body was covered in pitch-black fur, and its washbasin-sized ferocious eyes were emitting an astonishingly ominous glint. It seems that the ultimate profundities they've grasped should be the law of strength and the law of darkness, Madman muttered. That's right. In terms of strength, they are not inferior to this old man in the slightest. However, in front of the blood ancestor, they are nothing, Wadahong said. As expected, the blood ancestor looked at the human and beast with disdain. Boom! The power of death surged out, and the world instantly turned into hell. The power of death surged, toppling mountains and overturning seas. Damn it! Why is there such a terrifying human expert here? When the human and beast saw the power of death surging towards them, their expressions changed. They immediately turned around and activated their escape mode. Escape? The blood ancestor smiled contemptuously. He raised his hand and pointed in the air. A terrifying power of death surged out from his fingertips like a volcanic eruption and gathered in the sky above. In just an instant, the power of death flooded the sky within a radius of billions of meters. It was as if the sky was covered in clouds formed by demonic energy. The earth immediately fell into darkness. Qin Feiyang and the others looked up at the sky, because they knew that the ultimate profundities of the law of death were about to officially appear. Clang! Accompanied by an earth-shattering sound, a vast aura and a monstrous demonic aura spread out in the sky. Immediately after, a behemoth tore through the sky and appeared in the clouds. What is that? Madman was surprised. That behemoth was like a black world with a total of 18 layers. It was as if 18 worlds were stacked together. Each layer was different. There was a sea of fire. There was a mountain of blades. There was a demon king roaring. There was a ferocious ghost roaring. Between the clouds, it looked like an illusion. It was very unreal. This is the ultimate profundities of the law of death, the 18 layers of hell. Wadahong clenched his fists, his eyes filled with desire. 18 layers of hell? Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other. It turned out that each of the 18 layers was a piece of hell. With the appearance of the 18 layers of hell, it was as if the underworld had reappeared in the world. The entire sky was filled with images of gods and demons. The king of hell who ruled over hell. The king of hell who ruled over Yellow Spring. There were also countless ferocious and frightening ghost gods and ghost kings. The gods and demons appeared together to suppress all living beings in the world. Not to mention the human and beast. Even Qin Feiyang and the other four felt an uncontrollable fear in their hearts. It was as if at this moment, the legendary underworld had really appeared above their heads. Die! The blood ancestor laughed sinisterly. As he waved his hand, the 18 layers of hell suddenly erupted with a shocking demonic power. It carried the phantoms of gods and demons that filled the sky and suppressed the human and beast. No! The human and beast roared. their eyes filled with despair. The aura of death directly drowned their courage and fighting spirit, leaving only fear in their hearts. Boom! As the 18 layers of hell fell, the human and beast let out a shrill scream as their bodies were shattered in the void one after another. Their physical bodies were also very strong. They were at the supremacy level. Even so, under the 18 layers of hell, they were as weak as rotten wood. At the same time, the bloody hand between the blood ancestors' eyebrows quickly reached out and grabbed the souls of the human and beast. Qin Feiyang looked at this scene in astonishment. The human and beast had already condensed flesh and blood, so they should be considered divine souls. Since they were divine souls, they were naturally no different from ordinary people. But how could the blood ancestor devour them? The 18 layers of hell didn't disappear, and demonic power enveloped all directions. The blood ancestor didn't even need to make a move. The phantoms of gods and demons that filled the sky were like ruthless gods of death, wiping out countless skeletons. This is the ultimate meaning of the law of death. Whether it was Qin Feiyang or the mad scientist, they couldn't help but be fascinated. Because they both grasped the law of death. They hadn't seen it with their own eyes before, so it wasn't a big deal. But at this moment, when they saw the terror of the ultimate meaning of the law of death, their hearts were filled with an unprecedented desire. However, in contrast, the mad scientist was even more anxious. Because Qin Feiyang now at least had the epitome of the law of life and death, but the mad scientist didn't even have the epitome, let alone the ultimate meaning. To grasp the ultimate meaning, the first condition was to comprehend the epitome of the law of death, or find the epitome of the law of death. Otherwise, everything was just a dream. Chapter 37-31. Boom! Just as the blood ancestor was about to unleash a massacre, 3 earth-shattering explosions sounded from the depths of the mountain. In the next moment, 3 terrifying God realm auras surged forth like a tidal wave. Everywhere they went, mountains crumbled and the earth cracked. It was as if doomsday had arrived. It's them. Hua Dahong stared at the depths of the mountain, his eyes flashing. Qin Feiyang, the mad scientist, Princess Wolfeng, and Daifuku immediately looked up. At the same time, the blood ancestor also looked up, his eyes filled with blood-red light. Rumble, not long after. Accompanied by a deafening explosion, 3 beams of divine light shot out from the depths of the mountain and entered their vision. There were 3 divine artifacts. The first was a giant cauldron. It was 1,000 feet wide and was completely black and gray. Mountains, rivers, and all living things were engraved on it, and it emitted a dazzling divine light. The second was an ancient mirror. It was the size of a wash basin and had a gray frame with complicated runes carved on it. The surface of the mirror was the color of ice, as if it was formed from fragments of time and space. The third item was a pitch-black demonic pearl. The reason it was called a demonic pearl was because it emitted a shocking demonic aura. It was the size of an adult's fist and as black as ink. There was also a dragon snake-like beast totem on it. These 3 divine artifacts are the cauldron of all creation, the void mirror, and the illusory demonic pearl. The cauldron of all creation has the ability to contain all things. You can think of it as a spatial divine artifact, but its power cannot be underestimated. The void mirror and the illusory demonic pearl also have heaven-defying powers. Hua Dahong said, the Feng people had suffered greatly at the hands of these 3 divine artifacts over the years, so they knew them like the back of their hands. Even if they have heaven-defying powers, they can't stop us. Daifuku smiled. He had absolute confidence. After all, even they had 9 divine artifacts, not to mention Qin Feiyang and the blood ancestor. The blood ancestor was strong enough to fight against a divine artifact. Human, you're courting death. The universal cauldron and the 3 divine ruler weapons attacked the blood ancestor's ultimate intent, the 18 levels of hell. With the 3 sovereign weapons working together, it was naturally a one-sided battle. With a loud bang, the 18 levels of hell collapsed on the spot, turning into a terrifying force of death that flooded in all directions. However, to the 3 sovereign divine weapons, the power of death posed no threat at all. The ultimate profundity of the laws of death? A ruthless character has indeed come this time. But in our territory, even if you are a dragon, you still have to obediently lie down for us. After destroying the 18 layers of hell, the 3 sovereign divine weapons sneered as they charged toward the Blood Ancestor. The Blood Ancestor laughed. This ancestor has always been arrogant, but I didn't think that there would be someone even more arrogant than this ancestor today. Who do you think you are? You still dare to call yourself this ancestor? The 3 sovereigns' divine weapons were extremely disdainful. What if we join in? The Fire Phoenix Divine Axe and the Divine Phoenix Spear appeared in Hua Dahong's hand. Is this the helper you called? The 3 sovereign divine weapons asked when they saw Hua Dahong. You're only allowed to call helpers? Hua Dahong sneered. Senior brother, let's go. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly as he activated the concealment art and circled behind the 3 sovereign divine weapons with frenzy. Princess Huofeng glanced at the void where Qin Feiyang and Frenzy had disappeared, then looked at Daifuku and smiled. Let's go and help too. Okay. Daifuku nodded. With the eldest princess here, he was full of confidence. Whoosh. The 2 of them also rushed to the Blood Ancestor and Hua Dahong's side. There are 2 more minions? The 3 sovereigns of the Myriad Cauldron were stunned. Minions? The corners of Princess Huofeng's mouth rose as the Fire Phoenix blade appeared. She looked at Daifuku and said, For you to defend yourself? Thank you, Your Highness. Daifuku didn't stand on ceremony. In the Skybell Divine Treasure, only with a sovereign divine weapon would one have the ability to protect themselves. That's right. They could only protect themselves. If you thought that with a sovereign divine weapon, you could do whatever you wanted in the Skybell Divine Treasure and sweep through everything, you were gravely mistaken. After handing the Fire Phoenix blade to Daifuku, Princess Huofeng looked at the 3 sovereign divine weapons and chuckled. Now, I'll show you the strength of a small fry like me. Clang! As soon as she finished speaking, the Fire Phoenix Divine Jade, Fire Phoenix Sword, Black Ice Divine Hammer, Black Ice Divine Bow, Black Sky Divine Sword, and Black Sky Fan all appeared in an instant. The 6 sovereign divine weapons were like 6 gods descending to the mortal world. The 3 sovereign divine weapons were so frightened that they immediately turned and fled. What kind of joke was this? 9 sovereign divine weapons and a human who had grasped the ultimate intent. This was a situation where they could crush them. They couldn't understand why the other party had brought so many sovereign divine weapons. However, just as the 3 sovereign divine weapons turned and fled, 2 more humans appeared in the void in front of them. They were Qin Feiyang and Frenzy, who had gone behind them. There are more people, but they don't seem to be very strong. They don't have a sovereign divine weapon either. Let's kill them. The 3 divine weapons of the sovereigns were also ruthless characters. With just a single word of disagreement, they attacked Qin Feiyang and his companion. You think we're easy to bully again? Frenzy was stunned. You're obviously looking down on us. Can you bear it? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Of course not. Frenzy laughed. Heh. Qin Feiyang smiled. The 8 sovereign divine weapons, including the Sword of Thanatos, appeared one after another. What the hell? The Myriad Cauldron, Void Mirror, and Illusory Demon Orb immediately came to a halt. They couldn't help but feel shocked. Who the hell were these people? 8 or 9 sovereign divine weapons at the drop of a hat. How are they going to let them live? How dare you look down on us? Where did you get the courage? Frenzy's face was full of disdain. Don't be rash. We can talk this out. Surrounded by more than a dozen sovereign divine weapons, the 3 sovereign divine weapons were terrified to the extreme. We're not rash. But you guys, don't be rash. Otherwise, you'll end up being crushed. Princess Huofeng laughed. Good, good, good. We admit defeat. How about this? We'll give you 3 law miniatures and let us leave. The Myriad Cauldron said fearfully. What? 3 law miniatures? Qin Feiyang and the others couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. Thinking back, they had only found 2 law miniatures in all these years. One was the Law of Slaughter and the other was the Law of Fire. But now, this Myriad Cauldron actually wanted to give them 3 law miniatures at once? This was truly an unexpected surprise. Not only could they subdue 3 sovereign divine weapons, but they could also obtain 3 law miniatures. This was a huge profit. Frenzy asked calmly, "What law miniatures? We won't be interested in ordinary ones." "Of course you'll be interested in them, because there's an ultimate law miniatures," the myriad cauldron said. Ultimate law. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. Their eyes revealed a trace of desire. The myriad cauldron said, "Death law, wind law, war law, 3 miniatures." Death law. Frenzy's eyes trembled. Wasn't this the law miniatures that he had been longing for? Moreover, they could also use the war law and wind law miniatures. The myriad cauldron tempted, "As long as you're willing to let us go, this lord will immediately give it to you." "What? Are you threatening us? If we don't let you go, you won't give it to us?" Frenzy's brows twitched when he heard this. No, it's just a discussion, just a discussion." The myriad cauldron smiled flatteringly. "There's no room for discussion. If you don't give it to us, then you can take the law miniatures and go to hell together." Frenzy sneered. Let's talk nicely, let's talk nicely. It's not easy for everyone. There's no need to make a fuss like this." The 3 sovereign divine weapons begged for mercy. "There's nothing to talk about. If you want to live, you can only submit to us and obediently hand over the law miniatures." Frenzy snorted coldly. "Fine, we will submit." The 3 sovereign divine weapons answered straightforwardly. "What?" For a moment, it was Qin Feiyang and the others who were caught off guard. They thought that they would have to spend a lot of effort, but they didn't expect it to go so smoothly. They directly nodded and agreed to submit. Could it be a trick? Princess Huofeng transmitted her voice. "It's indeed a little strange. Could it be that they are pretending to submit and are preparing to quickly escape when we're not paying attention?" Frenzy secretly thought. If that's the case, then their wishful thinking is wrong. Qin Feiyang secretly smiled, looked at the 3 sovereign divine weapons, and said with a smile, "Then make a blood oath to be loyal to us forever. Never betray us and obey our words unconditionally." Blood oath? The 3 sovereign divine weapons were stunned. It's also a kind of oath. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Oath? The 3 sovereign divine weapons immediately mocked in their hearts. They were already peak sovereign divine weapons, yet they still believed in oaths? Weren't they childish and naive? Qin Feiyang moved closer to Frenzy's ear and whispered, "Senior brother, I'll have to trouble you to capture a human-shaped skeleton and bring it over." The madman rolled his eyes and chuckled. "All right." After saying that, he used the ghost steps and turned around to rush down the mountain. "Hurry up." Qin Feiyang looked at the 3 sovereign divine weapons and urged. "Wait, Qin Feiyang, shouldn't we discuss how to distribute them first?" Huadahong suddenly said. Qin Feiyang was stunned and said, "Old senior, shouldn't we first subdue them and then slowly discuss how to distribute them? What if something unexpected happened midway? So if they could be subdued, it was best to do so immediately." Huadahong said, "This old man knows your concerns. But now, we have more than a dozen sovereign divine weapons. What can happen?" "Okay, how do you think we should distribute them?" Qin Feiyang nodded and asked. Since they were so impatient, it seemed like they didn't trust him at all. Huadahong shook his head and said, "There are only 3 sovereign divine weapons now. To be honest, this old man also doesn't know how to distribute them. If I give you 2, the Feng people seem to be at a disadvantage. If you give the Feng people 2, then you definitely won't be willing." Boom. However, just as he finished speaking, a shocking fiendish aura surged toward Huadahong like a tide. Chapter 37-32. Huadahong immediately looked at the blood ancestor. Because this murderous aura came from the blood ancestor. Qin Feiyang, Princess Huofeng, and Daifuku also looked at the blood ancestor suspiciously. Why did he suddenly flip out? The blood ancestor looked at Huadahong, his eyes flashing with a cold light. "Am I just air in your eyes?" Huadahong panicked and hurriedly said, "What do you mean? How dare I treat you like air?" The blood ancestor said angrily, "If I'm not air, why didn't you include my share? Am I not worthy of having a sovereign divine weapon?" This, Dahong looked at the blood ancestor in shock. So it was because of this. But wasn't the blood ancestor and Qin Feiyang together? Why did he want to have a share? Wasn't he deliberately taking advantage of the blood ancestor? The blood ancestor sneered and said, "Do you think I should only have one spot because I'm with Qin Feiyang? Shouldn't that be the case?" Dahong asked. What a joke. Qin Feiyang is Qin Feiyang, and I'm not the same. How can we be the same? The blood ancestor said angrily. But you're both humans, Dahong hurriedly explained. Yes. Indeed, we are all humans. But we are from two different eras. We are not related at all. So, of course I have to be separated from him and take one spot each. What? You're not convinced? The blood ancestor laughed. Dahong clenched his hands. Wasn't this bullying? Grandpa. Actually, Qin Feiyang and the blood ancestor aren't as close as you think. He only found out about the blood ancestor's identity in the Skybell Divine Treasure. They used to have a grudge against each other. So, it's not appropriate to put them together. Princess Huofeng said telepathically. What's wrong with that? They're both humans. Besides, the blood ancestor and Qin Feiyang's ancestor were brothers. I say, girl, why do you always speak up for an outsider? I can't tell that Grandpa is fighting for the interests of the Feng people. Dahong angrily glared at Princess Huofeng. I know, but we do have to be reasonable, Princess Huofeng said. Dahong really didn't know what to do with his granddaughter. It was said that a married woman was like spilled water. But now, wasn't she still unmarried? How could he help an outsider? Wait a minute. Why would this old man think that? Could it be? Dahong looked at Princess Huofeng in surprise and asked, Do you like Qin Feiyang? Princess Huofeng looked at Dahong. The old man's imagination was too rich. You don't like Qin Feiyang? Dahong frowned and asked again. Then do you like lunatics? Grandpa, can you stop talking nonsense? Princess Huofeng was speechless. You don't like them either? Then why are you so protective of them? Dahong was so angry that his beard blew and his eyes widened. I'm not protecting them. I just feel that we shouldn't push our luck. If the blood ancestor didn't mention it, we can pretend that we don't know. But now that he has, we should give him a place. Princess Huofeng said telepathically. Dahong said angrily, Do you know that even if we give it to the blood ancestor, Qin Feiyang will benefit in the end? He has the right to give it to whoever he wants. However, the blood ancestor might not give it to Qin Feiyang. After all, he also needs to increase his strength. Princess Huofeng thought. Okay. I can't win against you. I'll leave it to you in the future. I don't want to suffer from your anger if I don't do a good job. Dahong waved his hand, looking quite annoyed. Princess Huofeng smiled bitterly and looked at the blood ancestor. Senior blood ancestor, I apologize on behalf of my grandpa. You're a sensible girl. The blood ancestor nodded in satisfaction, and the murderous aura dissipated. At the same time, the cauldron, the void mirror, and the illusory demon orb watched Qin Feiyang and the others argue endlessly. They couldn't help but laugh in their hearts. What was there to argue about? Did they really think that they would obediently submit? A bunch of ignorant idiots. Qin Feiyang looked at Dahong and smiled. In that case, we'll each have one of the 3 sovereign divine weapons. I choose the cauldron of creation. I choose the illusory demon orb, the blood ancestor said. Then we can only choose the void mirror. Princess Huofeng smiled. They were all sovereign divine weapons anyway. It didn't matter who they chose. Swear to the people you're loyal to. Qin Feiyang told the 3 sovereign divine weapons how to make a blood oath. The 3 sovereign divine weapons were also quite nimble, and they swore the blood oath in unison. It was worth mentioning that when the void mirror made the blood oath, just like the profound ice divine hammer and the other 4 sovereign divine weapons, it was only loyal to Princess Fire Phoenix. Dahong and Feng Ho had nothing to do with the void mirror. This was also Qin Feiyang's intention. As long as the white-eyed wolf could deal with this woman, the sovereign divine weapons by Princess Huofeng's side would be equivalent to theirs. In the end, it would not fall into the hands of Feng Ho. After making the blood oath, the 3 sovereign divine weapons watched the seal descend. They couldn't help but be surprised. What was going on? Why would the heavens descend? Now, don't think about anything for the time being. I'll put on a good show for you later. I'm not joking with you. If you don't listen to me, you will be destroyed. Qin Feiyang looked at the three sovereign divine weapons and said, destruction of both body and soul? The three sovereign divine weapons were surprised. Although they were suspected of scaring them, looking at Qin Feiyang's serious expression, they couldn't help but feel inexplicably flustered. Boom. At this time, a battle fluctuation came from afar. Obviously, Madman had found the skeleton and was trying his best to capture it. After a while, the battle fluctuation disappeared. Soon, Madman came back with a blood-colored skeleton that was on the verge of death. Qin Feiyang also forced the blood-colored skeleton to make a blood oath. Moreover, the conditions of the blood oath were quite harsh. The slightest thought of disobeying would be punished by the heavens. When Madman let go of the blood-colored skeleton, the blood-colored skeleton immediately fled, but it didn't escape far. Crack! Blood clouds covered the sky, and a heavenly tribulation descended. The blood-colored skeleton screamed on the spot and turned into ashes. What? The universal cauldron, the void mirror, and the illusory demon orb all looked at this scene in shock. Did you see that? This is the result of violating the blood oath. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. How is that possible? The three sovereign divine weapons couldn't believe it. It was actually an oath that would come true? Give up on your thoughts. If it weren't for the blood oath, do you think we would work for this bastard? Gold Sun Divine Sword and Silver Moon Divine Sword sneered. You guys are also controlled? The three sovereign divine weapons were surprised. Otherwise, the two sovereign divine swords sighed deeply. So what if it comes true? We are sovereign divine weapons. How can a mere heavenly tribulation destroy us? The three sovereign divine weapons were silent for a long time before roaring unwillingly. Then you can give it a try. The two of us can confirm it. If you really can't hurt our sovereign divine weapons, we will immediately break up with Qin Feiyang. The two sovereign divine swords laughed. Why don't you try? The three divine weapons of the sovereigns were so angry that they exploded like thunder. We are not as courageous as you. The two sovereign divine swords flattered. Get lost. The three sovereign divine weapons snorted coldly. What a joke. This was a matter of life and death. How could they casually try? If the heavenly tribulation could really destroy them, wouldn't they be courting death? Even if they wanted to try, they couldn't take the risk themselves. Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and hand over the law miniature. Frenzy stretched out his hand, his eyes full of desire. Sigh. The universal cauldron sighed and transmitted its voice to the void mirror and illusory demon orb. Let's follow them first. In the future, we will find a chance to let the other sovereign divine weapons try. Okay. The void mirror responded. Wait, don't we have an old enemy? Why don't we take these people to find it and use it to test the power of the blood oath? Suddenly, the illusory demon orb said. Each of them was a cunning old fox. None of them were good people. Makes sense. If the power of the blood oath is really that strong, we won't lose anything. Instead, we can use this opportunity to get rid of an enemy. In that case, let's not give them the law miniature for the time being. The three sovereign divine weapons immediately came to an agreement. They looked at Qin Feiyang and said, compared to the law miniature, there's something more important for you. They were loyal to Qin Feiyang, the blood ancestor, and Princess Huofeng. So even if they disobeyed Frenzy and didn't take out the law miniature, they wouldn't be punished. What is it? Qin Feiyang and the others were curious. The universal cauldron said, there's another sovereign divine weapon nearby. Really? They were pleasantly surprised. Do we still dare to lie to you? It's absolutely true. As long as you nod, we'll take you there now. The universal cauldron said temptingly. Then what are we waiting for? Lead the way. Frenzy urged. These surprises really came one after another. Follow us. After saying that, the universal cauldron, the void mirror, and the illusory demon orb took the lead and flew forward. Qin Feiyang and the others also put away their sovereign divine weapons and chased after them under the blood ancestor's lead. Old Qin, why do I feel like these three are also scammers? Frenzy muttered. Who told them to be sovereign divine weapons? If they're scammers, so be it. Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly. No matter how much of a scammer the sovereign divine weapons were, they could only accept it. They couldn't destroy them just because of their personalities, right? What a pity. About 2 days passed. Finally, they saw a lake. The lake was calm, and the lake was dead silent. It was difficult to see a skeleton nearby. However, at the bottom of the lake, they could feel a terrifying aura from afar. It's at the bottom of the lake. However, this guy's personality is a bit arrogant, so it won't be easy to subdue it. You have to be mentally prepared. The universal cauldron stopped outside and said, "If you don't submit, you'll die." Frenzy laughed. When the three divine weapons of the sovereigns heard this, they chuckled secretly. Then, their divine auras burst forth and surged toward the lake. Chapter 37-33. Boom. As the three sovereign divine weapons arrived, the lake was torn apart. The water in the lake disappeared in an instant, and dust billowed. "It's you again." An angry roar sounded. A battle sword that was imbued with the power to annihilate heaven and earth charged out from the dust cloud toward the three sovereign divine weapons. The battle sword was 2 meters long and 5 fingers wide. The thickness of the sword was 2 centimeters, and it was completely black. It was a heavy sword. There was no blade on it, but it was no weaker than the other sovereign divine weapons. Don't be rash, don't be rash. We're not the ones looking for you this time. It's these humans. The three sovereign divine weapons quickly explained. Humans? The heavy sword finally noticed Qin Feiyang and the others. Yes. They want you to submit and work for them. The cauldron of all things said, "What? Work for them?" The heavy sword was furious. Its divine will shrouded Qin Feiyang and the others as it sneered. "How dare trash like you have any ideas about me? You don't know what's good for you. Trash?" The Blood Patriarch raised his brows upon hearing this. The 18 layers of hell, the ultimate intent of the law of death, appeared and unleashed an apocalyptic might toward the heavy sword. Ultimate intent. The heavy sword was shocked and immediately stopped underestimating it. Numerous strands of sword chi seemed to have transformed into an enormous wave that tore through the heavens and the earth as it smashed down towards the 18 levels of hell. Accompanied by an earth-shattering sound, the two shattered in the void and a terrifying destructive power swept in all directions. Clang! At the same time, the Sword of Thanatos and the Fire Phoenix sword appeared and released their power to protect Qin Feiyang and the others. What? There are sovereign divine weapons? The heavy sword was shocked. It felt that the situation didn't seem right. Bastard! You're here to trick me. Suddenly, the heavy sword roared at the cauldron of all things and immediately turned around to escape. Hey! The three sovereign divine weapons snickered. They seemed to have expected that the heavy sword would escape. Therefore, they were prepared to surround it and block its path. What are you doing? The heavy sword roared. Since you know that we're here to trick you, why don't you submit? The void mirror chuckled. Bastards, I will fight you to the death today. The heavy sword was enraged, and it attacked the three sovereign weapons in a frenzy. You? The three sovereign divine weapons harumphed coldly and unleashed their full power to attack the heavy sword. With a loud bang, the heavy sword was blasted away, and cracks appeared on its body. Don't tell me you've already submitted to them? The heavy sword asked. Why else would we bring them here? The illusory demon orb cackled. You? It actually submitted to a group of humans. This is a disgrace to our dominator divine weapon. The heavy sword roared. Shame? The three sovereign divine weapons were enraged as well, and they charged forward in a frenzy. The blood ancestor sneered coldly. He once again activated his ultimate intent and attacked the heavy sword. Looking at the majestic blood ancestor, Qin Feiyang and the others couldn't help but reveal looks of envy. How great would it be if they could fight against a sovereign weapon like this? Especially Hua Dahong. The gap between him and the blood ancestor was the smallest. They were only one ultimate law away. However, Even though it was only a step away, it was like a natural chasm that he couldn't cross. Perhaps he would never be able to cross it in his entire life. So right now, what he needed the most was a miniature version of an ultimate law. The battle lasted for several hundred breaths. Faced with the absolute suppression of 4 against 1, the heavy sword broke into pieces on the spot with a cracking sound. How is it? The void mirror smiled smugly. Humph. I'd rather die than submit. The heavy sword harumphed coldly. You have backbone. But that's not up to you. The blood ancestor and the 3 sovereign divine weapons forcibly brought the heavy sword to Qin Feiyong's side. Don't be nervous. We'll treat you well. Qin Feiyong looked at the heavy sword with a smile, as if he were abducting a child. Kill me or torture me, do as you please. The heavy sword was unyielding and resolutely refused to compromise. Don't be so rash. Isn't it good to keep it alive? To tell you the truth, he just wants you to swear allegiance to him. Just deal with it for now. The void mirror and the 3 sovereign divine weapons secretly instigated. Swear? The heavy sword was stunned. Yes, it's just a mere oath. What are you afraid of? The 3 sovereign divine weapons secretly said. That's true. The heavy sword pondered for a moment, then said to Qin Feiyong, Fine, I'll submit, but I have a condition. Qin Feiyong looked at the heavy sword in surprise. Why did it suddenly change its mind? He asked, What condition? The heavy sword said, Let those 3 bastards be my lackeys in the future. Old thing, you're a bit unethical. You actually want to take advantage of us? The 3 sovereign divine weapons said angrily, I'm unethical? How can you have the face to say that? Who's the one trying to trick me now? The heavy sword roared. The 3 sovereign divine weapons trembled in anger. Qin Feiyong looked at the 3 sovereign divine weapons, and a smile gradually appeared on his face. He looked at the heavy sword and said, I can promise you, but the premise is that you have to make a blood oath. After all, your sovereign divine weapons are too powerful. I don't dare to believe your nonsense. What? It's a blood oath, the heavy sword exclaimed. Qin Feiyong was stunned. What's going on? Looking at its reaction, it turned out that this sovereign divine weapon knew about the blood oath. The 3 sovereign divine weapons were also stunned. They transmitted, Old man, how do you know about the blood oath? But the heavy sword ignored them, and it didn't answer Qin Feiyong, remaining silent. After a long time, the heavy sword asked, Do you know a golden-robed young man? Golden-robed young man? Qin Feiyong and Madman looked at each other, and they recalled in their minds. Golden-robed young man. They didn't seem to have seen any golden-robed young man before. The first prince of the dragons wore a golden robe, but this person didn't seem to have entered the Heaven Bell divine treasure. Wait. Madman's eyes trembled as he transmitted his voice. Could it be the white-eyed wolf? The white-eyed wolf. Qin Feiyong immediately shivered. That's right. Wasn't the white-eyed wolf a golden-robed young man after turning into a human form? Is it him? Qin Feiyong quickly waved his hand and formed the human form of the white-eyed wolf. Yes, it's him. The heavy sword replied. Princess Huafeng, Daifuku, Huadahong, and the blood ancestor all looked at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously, because they had never seen the human form of the white-eyed wolf. And although Daifuku, Huadahong, and Princess Huafeng had seen it on Skycloud Island, they didn't know it was the white-eyed wolf. Then they looked at Qin Feiyong and Madman. Hearing the heavy sword's answer, the two couldn't help but become excited. They finally found the whereabouts of the white-eyed wolf and asked, Where did you see him? A few years ago in the Fallen Canyon. The heavy sword said, The Fallen Canyon? Qin Feiyong was stunned. Where was that? The heavy sword said, The Fallen Canyon is in the northeast. It's half a month's journey from here. Qin Feiyong turned to the blood ancestor and asked, Ancestor, do you know? The Skybell Divine Treasury is so big. I don't know every place. The blood ancestor shook his head. Qin Feiyong looked at the heavy sword again and asked, So, you saw the blood oath at his place? The white-eyed wolf naturally knew about the blood oath. The blood oath wasn't a secret technique that needed to be cultivated. As long as you knew the method, you could master it. For example, Madman, Princess Wufeng, the Blood Ancestor, Daifuku, and Huadahong all knew how to make the Blood Oath. After all, 2 days ago, when the 3 sovereign weapons made the Blood Oath, Qin Feiyong had already told them the method. Yes, the heavy sword replied. This guy actually used the Blood Oath? Could it be that he's also subduing a sovereign weapon? Madman was secretly surprised. It's possible. Qin Feiyong looked at the heavy sword and said, "Then make the Blood Oath first." Blood Oath, the heavy sword murmured. Qin Feiyong's eyes turned cold. He said in a deep voice, "When you heard that we made you make the Blood Oath, you began to hesitate. Then when you said you would submit, you were lying to us." The heavy sword stammered. Clang. The red sword and several other sovereign weapons appeared. So many sovereign weapons. The heavy sword couldn't help but tremble. Its heart fell into despair. With so many sovereign weapons, it was impossible to escape. However, if it had to make the Blood Oath, it would have to listen to these humans in the future. It was really unwilling. "You won't listen when we talk to you nicely. Do you want to force us to attack?" Madman's eyes flashed with killing intent. I sigh. "Fine, I submit." The heavy sword finally compromised. Seeing this, the Blood Ancestor looked at Huadahong and the others and asked, "This sovereign weapon will be given to Qin Feiyong first. Do you have any objections?" Although he didn't know anything about the white-eyed wolf, based on Qin Feiyong and Madman's previous behavior, the heavy sword definitely knew something. Therefore, he took the initiative to speak, lest Huadahong jumped out to snatch it. "There's no need to ask this old man. Wooer will do whatever she says." Huadahong was very straightforward. "Of course I have no objections." Princess Wufeng glanced at the heavy sword and smiled at the Blood Ancestor. The Blood Ancestor looked at Princess Wufeng. The more he looked at this junior of the opposing faction, the more satisfied he was. "Thank you." Qin Feiyong thanked the Blood Ancestor and Princess Wufeng before holding the heavy sword and swearing a blood oath. Why do I feel like something's wrong? The myriad cauldron and the 3 sovereign weapons stared blankly at this scene. They had originally planned to let the heavy sword test the power of the Blood Oath, but looking at the current situation, it seemed that the heavy sword already knew the power of the Blood Oath. After swearing the Blood Oath, the heavy sword asked Qin Feiyong, "Then the previous conditions haven't changed, right? These 3 bastards will be my followers in the future?" "No." Qin Feiyong smiled. "The 3 of you didn't expect this, did you? You deliberately came to trick me, but in the end, you became my followers." The heavy sword smiled proudly. The 3 sovereign weapons were indignant. "At first, I thought that you were just here to trick me. But when I learned about the Blood Oath, I suddenly realized that you were here to harm me. Because once you violate the Blood Oath, you will be punished by the heavens. You want to use me as a test subject to test the power of the Blood Oath because you know my personality. I won't be willing to be controlled by humans and will definitely resist. This way, you can test the power of the Blood Oath and see if it can destroy us sovereign weapons. You guys are really vicious." The heavy sword laughed angrily. "What? You still have such thoughts?" Qin Feiyong and the madman glared at the 3 sovereign weapons. The 3 sovereign weapons couldn't help but panic. "Humph." "At first, I felt a little guilty for making you its little followers. But now, it seems that you deserve it." Qin Feiyong snorted. "You are a classic example of trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it." The madman laughed gloatingly. Yes, yes, yes." The 3 sovereign weapons flattered again and again. The heavy sword sneered. "Don't think that you can get away with it. The power of the Blood Oath is enough to destroy our sovereign weapons because I saw it with my own eyes." "What?" The 3 sovereign weapons, including the Gold Sun Sword and the Silver Moon Sword, couldn't help but tremble. Chapter 37-34. You've seen the power of the Blood Oath? Qin Feiyong and the madman were also shocked. Could it be that the white-eyed wolf had subdued a sovereign weapon, but because the sovereign weapon was unwilling, it was killed by the heavenly tribulation? That's right. Do you still remember that old sly fox? The heavy sword was asking about the cauldron of all things and the 3 sovereign divine weapons. Of course, that old sly fox. We were tricked by him and lost 3 laws. I've long wanted to settle the score with him. The universal cauldron snorted. Qin Feiyang was shocked. The myriad cauldron and the 3 sovereign divine weapons were already considered to be complete rip-offs. Who would have thought that there would be something even more vicious than them? That old sly fox pretended to subdue the golden-clothed youth and then attacked him from behind. He was killed by the heavenly tribulation on the spot, not even leaving behind a trace. The heavy sword sneered. Hearing this, the 3 sovereign weapons, the gold sun divine sword, and the silver moon divine sword all broke out in cold sweat. When it came from Qin Feiyang's mouth, they still dared to question it. But when it came from the heavy sword, it was definitely true. The 5 sovereign weapons all broke out in cold sweat. Luckily, they didn't have any thoughts of disobedience during this period. Otherwise, they would have been destroyed. The heavy sword laughed. You wanted to trick me, but you ended up tricking yourself. This is retribution. From now on, listen to me obediently, little follower. Looking at the proud heavy sword, the 3 sovereign divine weapons gnashed their teeth in anger. The madman looked at the 3 sovereign weapons and laughed. Now, hand over the laws. Why should I listen to you? The universal cauldron snorted. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and looked at the universal cauldron. Senior brother's words are my words. You must listen, and listen unconditionally. The universal cauldron trembled and immediately became obedient. With a whoosh, 3 divine lights flew out from the cauldron. Qin Feiyang and the others immediately looked over. It was indeed the death laws, wind laws, and war laws. The madman's eyes lit up. He stepped forward and grabbed the miniature versions of the law of death and law of war. He would not let go even if he was beaten to death, because he needed both of these miniature forms. As for Qin Feiyang, he had the epitome of the law of life and death. Not long after coming to the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, he had also comprehended the highest profundity of the law of war and obtained the epitome of the battle character formula. Therefore, he did not need it. The blood ancestor didn't need it either. He could rely on devouring the souls of the dead to strengthen his comprehension of the laws. If he really wanted to snatch it, he would definitely snatch the epitome of an ultimate law. However, Hua Dahong was very anxious and hurriedly signaled to Princess Huafeng with his eyes. How could he let Qin Feiyang and the others benefit from all 3 of the miniatures? However, Princess Huafeng was too embarrassed to ask, as Qin Feiyang had already given her the miniature version of the Law of Fire. Qin Feiyang glanced at Princess Huafeng and asked the cauldron of all creation, "Do you have more?" Sigh. The cauldron of all creation hesitated for a moment and sighed helplessly. It wanted to say no, but with the blood oath, it did not dare to lie to Qin Feiyang and said, "There are 2 more miniatures." There really are more? Qin Feiyang was stunned. How was this a cauldron? It was simply a treasure bowl. Since there are more, then hurry up and take them out, the madman urged. Ever since he encountered the 3 divine weapons of the cauldron of all creation, he had been pleasantly surprised. Sigh. The cauldron of all creation sighed again. Accompanied by a whoosh, 2 divine lights flew out from the cauldron. At this moment, Qin Feiyang and the others became excited, because these were the miniature versions of 2 ultimate laws. One was like a wisp of black flame that released an unparalleled devouring power. The other was like a wisp of ice crystal that emitted a terrifying space-time power. The miniature version of the Law of Devouring. The miniature version of the Law of Space-Time. Not to mention Qin Feiyang and the other juniors, even the eyes of the blood ancestor were filled with desire. The madman came back to his senses and looked inside the cauldron of all creation, but he could not see anything. It was pitch black. He asked, "Are there any other treasures hidden inside? Do you think I'm a treasure bowl?" The cauldron of all creation was furious. How stupid. Apart from the miniature versions of laws, what else could catch the eyes of these divine weapons? Really? The madman did not believe it. Go in and see for yourself. The cauldron of all creation said angrily. Okay. The madman really jumped down into the cauldron of all creation. The interior of the cauldron was a space of nothingness. It was boundless and could really contain everything. However, there was nothing else in the entire space. It seemed incomparably empty. If it wasn't for the blood oath, I would have suppressed you here and never let you escape. A cold snort came from the cauldron of all creation. Huh. The madman laughed and quickly left the cauldron of all creation. How is it? Qin Feiyong asked. Indeed, there's nothing left. The madman shook his head. Okay, you should be satisfied. Qin Feiyong patted the madman's shoulder. Not only did he obtain the 4 divine weapons of the cauldron of all creation, but he also obtained 5 miniature versions of laws. Although there were not many of them, their value was immeasurable. After all, the divine weapons of the sovereigns and the miniature versions of laws were not ordinary divine weapons, herbs, pills, soul lines, crystal veins, and other treasures. Yes, yes, yes. The madman nodded and immediately stared at the miniature versions of the laws of space and time. Little madman, don't be too greedy. You've already taken the miniature versions of the laws of death and war. The blood ancestor saw that the situation was bad and hurriedly stopped the madman to prevent this kid from getting ahead of him again. You still need them? The madman was stunned. Nonsense. Who doesn't need the miniature versions of the strongest laws? Although I haven't grasped the laws of space and time, as long as I have this miniature version, comprehending the laws of space and time is only a matter of time. Let's talk about it later. I plan to leave this miniature version for Li Feng. He just happens to grasp the laws of space and time. The blood ancestor said, I see. The madman looked reluctantly at the miniature version. At the same time, Princess Huofeng stared longingly at the miniature version of the Law of Devour. Because she had grasped the miniature version of the Law of Devour. As far as she knew, Qin Feiyong and the madman hadn't comprehended the Law of Devour, so they didn't need it. We originally agreed to share it equally, but now, senior brother has already taken 2 miniature versions. If we continue to fight, we will be too greedy. Take the miniature versions of the Law of Devour and the Law of Space and Time. Qin Feiyong looked at the blood ancestor and Princess Huofeng and smiled. In fact, he also wanted it. But there was no other way. One couldn't be too greedy. Besides, the future was long, and he might have a chance to get it in the future. As for the Law of Wind, he naturally didn't need it, because the Tao character formula definitely contained the miniature version of the Law of Wind. As long as he comprehended the ultimate profound, the miniature version would automatically appear. Thank you. Princess Huofeng was overjoyed when she heard this and immediately went forward to grab the miniature version of the Law of Devour. The blood ancestor also calmly took the miniature version of the Law of Space and Time. All in all, Qin Feiyong and the madman had the advantage. The miniature versions of the 3 laws, the universal cauldron, the heavy sword, and 2 sovereign divine weapons. The blood ancestor and the Feng people each obtained a sovereign divine weapon and a miniature version of the Law of Devour. Seeing Qin Feiyong give up the miniature version of the Law of Devour, Hua Dahong couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. At least his efforts weren't in vain. Little lackey, you lost both your woman and your wealth. The heavy sword didn't let go of the opportunity to mock him. Scram. The universal cauldron was extremely angry. All of its inheritance was divided up in front of it. Ba. What inheritance? This is property. Can't you leave some for me? How inhumane. The madman asked telepathically. Then, are we going to find the white-eyed wolf next? Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment and looked at the heavy sword. How many years ago did you meet Bai Xiaotian? He was already used to calling the white-eyed wolf, so Qin Feiyong wanted to say white-eyed wolf. Fortunately, he reacted in time and casually gave the white-eyed wolf a name. Bai Xiaotian? Not only the heavy sword, but the blood ancestor and the others were also suspicious. Qin Feiyong looked at the heavy sword and smiled. It's that golden-robed young man. So his name is Bai Xiaotian. The blood ancestor and the others nodded in realization. But why hadn't they heard of this name before? They had never seen this person before. Could it be that he had been hiding somewhere in the Black Tortoise realm and had only come out now? The heavy sword thought for a moment and said, I met it 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Qin Feiyang frowned. It had been 3 years. The white-eyed wolf might not still be in the fallen Grand Canyon. However, he had to go and take a look. What if the white-eyed wolf was hiding in the fallen Grand Canyon and cultivating in seclusion? After all, the white-eyed wolf had mastered the law of time and could set up a time array. For it, no matter where it was, it could cultivate. Moreover, the white-eyed wolf was also very smart. It was very likely that it would leave clues or marks in the fallen Grand Canyon that could be traced to its whereabouts. Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang looked at everyone and smiled. Let's go to the fallen Grand Canyon immediately. Not fusing with the law miniatures first? Hua Dahong asked. How can we have time to fuse with the miniatures now? Let's wait until we leave the Skybell Divine Treasure and then slowly fuse with it. The most important thing now is to take advantage of this opportunity to find more law miniatures. Qin Feiyang smiled. Back then, the little rabbit had said that in order to protect the divine beasts in the land of the buried gods and the purple gold divine dragon sealed in the core area, it had given the dragons, the Feng people, and the Kirin clan as many as 15 law miniatures. And these law miniatures were all found in the Skybell Divine Treasure. And the little rabbit might have more. Since the little rabbit could find so many, as long as they worked hard, they would definitely be able to find a lot. One had to know. Now, Qin Feiyang, the blood ancestor, and the Feng people had joined forces with a large number of sovereign divine weapons. Such a lineup had probably surpassed the little rabbit back then. So, not to say that they had to find more law miniatures than the little rabbit, but at least the difference couldn't be too big. That makes sense. Hua Dahong nodded. I have an idea. We can fuse with it while traveling and also enjoy the benefits of the time array. Princess Wolfing pondered for a while and looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two. What idea? Qin Feiyang was taken aback and quickly asked. Chapter 37-35. Princess Wolfing didn't explain. She turned to Daifuku and said with a smile, I'll have to trouble you. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang and the others were enlightened. This was to let Daifuku return to his original form, and then everyone would get on Daifuku's back. This way, Daifuku would be able to carry them. And here, the only Feng people were Princess Wolfing, Hua Dahong, and Daifuku. Princess Wolfing wanted to fuse with the law miniature. Hua Dahong was Princess Wolfing's grandfather, so he naturally couldn't be used as a mount, so he could only make Daifuku suffer a bit. What's so hard about this? Big Fortune shook his head and smiled. He flew up into the sky. Accompanied by a phoenix cry, a huge fire phoenix appeared in the sky. Its body was over 30,000 meters long. It's too big a target. This isn't good. The blood ancestor shook his head. Okay. Daifuku quickly shrank to about 10 meters, and the power of the divine phoenix spread in all directions. It's about time. The blood ancestor nodded. The group jumped onto Daifuku's back one after another. The blood ancestor immediately set up a time array on Daifuku's back. Madman and Princess Wolfing immediately sat down cross-legged and fused with the law miniature. You guys should also take the opportunity to repair your bodies. Qin Feiyang looked at the 4 sovereign divine weapons. The cauldron, void mirror, and illusory demon orb were fine. They were only slightly damaged because they didn't attack much. However, the heavy sword's injuries were very serious. Its body was severely damaged and would be difficult to recover without 1,000,000 years. The fallen canyon was in the northeast. There was also the heavy sword to guide the way. And with the blood ancestor, Hua Dahong, and the cauldron, there was no need to worry about safety. Qin Feiyang also sat down cross-legged and continued to comprehend the law of life and death. Now, he had to put aside the other laws and focus on comprehending the law of life and death. Because as long as he comprehended the supreme law of life and death, he would be able to crush the supreme law of life and death. If he comprehended the ultimate law of life and death, even if it was a powerhouse like the blood ancestor or the sovereign divine weapons, he would still be able to crush them. In short, as long as he comprehended the ultimate law of life and death, he would be invincible in the future. Even supreme existences like the Dragon King had to be wary of him. It didn't take much time to fuse with the law miniature. In less than half a day, the Fire Phoenix First Princess successfully fused the Fire Law and the Devouring Law. But this half-day was also 500 years in the time array to be in the time array to similarly. Madman also successfully fused with the Law of Death and the Law of as she continued cultivating to cultivate to continue to cultivate twos. To work two, TTS to waste these rare. Madman opened his eyes and looked up at the blood ancestor who was standing on Big Fortune's head. He asked, "Ancestor, there's something I don't understand, too." The blood ancestor asked without turning his head. Qin Feiyong also opened his eyes and looked at the madman suspiciously. The madman asked curiously, "Shouldn't skeletons that form bodies be divine souls? How can you devour them?" Qin Feiyong also looked at the blood ancestor. This question had been puzzling him for a long time. They are different. Even if they form bodies, they don't get rid of the undead energy in their bodies, so they aren't divine souls but souls of the dead. The blood ancestor explained, "I see." Qin Feiyong and the madman were enlightened. The madman pondered for a while, then turned to Qin Feiyong and said, "Isn't your undead barrier-breaking pill used to get rid of undead energy? In that case, the undead barrier-breaking pill should be useful to them." Qin Feiyong's heart stirred. He looked up at the blood ancestor and asked, "Are the Divine King of Primal Chaos and the 10 Demon Kings still souls of the dead?" "Yes. Without special means, the undead energy can't be washed away." The blood ancestor nodded. "The Divine King of Primal Chaos? The 10 Demon Kings? Why are you talking about them?" Hua Dahong looked at the three in surprise. The madman laughed. "You still don't know? Qin Feiyong and your granddaughter met the Black Flame Demon King. If it weren't for the help of the 3 sovereign divine weapons, they would have been finished." "What?" Hua Dahong looked at Qin Feiyong and Princess Wuffing in shock. "They actually met the Black Flame Demon King." Qin Feiyong asked suspiciously, "Old senior, you also know about the Divine King of Primal Chaos?" "Yes. I've heard of them. When the Skybell Divine Treasury opened last time, I also entered, but I didn't see them with my own eyes. I thought it was just a legend, but I didn't expect them to really exist." "Are they very strong?" Hua Dahong asked. "Super strong. The Black Flame Demon King and his sovereign divine weapon, the Black Flame Demon Castle, facing the two of them, we and our sovereign divine weapons won't be able to fight them unless we suppress them with numbers." Qin Feiyong shook his head and sighed. Hua Dahong was shocked when he heard this. They were actually such powerful existences. Daifuku was the same. His huge body shook a few times in shock. If the Divine King of Primal Chaos and the 10 Demon Kings are undead, and if the undead barrier-breaking pill is really effective on them, then it might be a chance for us. The madman pondered for a while before looking at Qin Feiyong and the blood ancestor. Indeed, for people like them, no matter how strong they are still undead. This is undoubtedly a very painful thing for them. If we can help them solve this problem, we might be able to make them have a good impression of us and turn the situation around. The blood ancestor nodded. "But I don't have any ingredients, pill fire or pill furnace." Qin Feiyong frowned. "Ingredients, pill fire, pill furnace, it shouldn't be difficult to find them. After all, there are so many people here this time. There must be a few alchemists with pill furnaces and pill fires." The blood ancestor waved his hand. "What about the ingredients?" "The ingredients for the undead barrier-breaking pill are only recorded in the pill scripture. It has long been lost in the sky cloud realm. Even if they carry a lot of ingredients with them, I think they definitely don't have the ingredients for the undead barrier-breaking pill." Qin Feiyong said. "That makes sense." The blood ancestor nodded and raised his eyebrows. "Then why don't you carry some ingredients with you? I have already handed over the matter of alchemy to Dan Wangkai. As for me, even I don't know how long it has been since I last refined pills. Let's talk about it later. This undead barrier-breaking pill has only been used by Huolian since the very beginning. I have never used it before. How could I possibly carry it around with me?" Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. "You This is a waste of such a good alchemy talent. I guess even Dan Wonkai has surpassed you now. The blood ancestor stared at Qin Fei Yang, as if he expected better from Qin Fei Yang. He also knows alchemy? Hua Dahong was surprised. Nonsense. His alchemy talent may not be the best in the world, but it can at least be ranked in the top 10 in the Sky Cloud realm. The blood ancestor smiled proudly. Such a good talent. Why did you give it up? Others can't even ask for it. Hua Dahong also looked at Qin Fei Yang with great regret. Isn't this troublesome? Qin Fei Yang laughed dryly. Hearing this, the blood ancestor, Hua Dahong, and Daifuku were speechless. They thought it was an amazing reason, but it turned out that it was just troublesome. How could there be such a willful person in the world? There's nothing to say about this. Let's think about how to find the ingredients for the undead barrier breaking pill. I think the Skybell Divine Treasure should have these ingredients. Qin Fei Yang glanced at the mountains and rivers below and thought, what kind of ingredients are needed for the undead barrier breaking pill? The blood ancestor was puzzled. Let me think. I haven't refined it for too long. My memory is a little fuzzy. Qin Fei Yang laughed dryly and lowered his head to think. The blood ancestor was speechless. If this was his descendant, he would definitely slap him to death. I remember now. After a long time, Qin Fei Yang finally reacted. He raised his head and looked at the blood ancestor. The undead spirit breakthrough pill only requires 4 ingredients. They are the undead flower, the death fruit, the yin yang wood, and the extreme young thunder fire. Undead flower, death fruit, yin yang wood, extreme young thunder fire. The blood ancestor thought for a moment and frowned. These ingredients are definitely difficult to find in the Great Qin and the Ancient Realm, but they don't seem rare in the Sky Cloud Realm. After saying that, the blood ancestor looked at Hua Dahong. Hua Dahong pondered for a moment and nodded. They are indeed not rare, but the alchemists of the Sky Cloud Realm have no use for these things. Therefore, the people of the various forces will directly store them in the treasury. The blood ancestor pondered for a moment and looked at the dark earth below. Apart from the extreme young thunder fire, the other 3 are all evil things. It shouldn't be difficult to find them in the Skybell Divine Treasure. Everything reinforces and restrains each other. If there are undead flower, death fruit, and yin yang wood, then there must be extreme young thunder fire here. Hua Dahong nodded. Yes, we can give it a try. Let's see if we can help the primal chaos divine king and the others wash away the undead chi on them. To be honest, the blood ancestor couldn't help but panic when he was constantly being targeted by experts like the primal chaos divine king and the 10 demon kings. If there was a chance to bury the hatchet, it would naturally be more than welcome. Okay, then next, not only do we have to look for the law miniatures, but we also have to pay attention to these ingredients. Qin Fei Yang nodded. Not only the blood ancestor, but the Feather Emperor also had a grudge with the primal chaos divine king. Therefore, if there was a chance to reconcile, he would try his best to try. However, Hua Dahong had a bad premonition. Looking at the attitude of Qin Fei Yang and the blood ancestor, it seemed that they were going to provoke the primal chaos divine king and the 10 demon kings. Was this kind of terrifying existence something they could provoke? It was simply courting death. The madman was silent for a moment before laughing. Actually, it's not like we have no chance of winning against the black-clothed demon king now. Indeed. Qin Fei Yang nodded. With the addition of the Void Mirror, Princess Huafeng and Hua Dahong now had 10 sovereign divine weapons. The blood ancestor's strength could fight against a sovereign divine weapon. Now that he had the illusory demon orb, it was undoubtedly like adding wings to a tiger. And on their side, Ancient Castle, Grim Reaper's Sword, Crimson Sword, Ice Phoenix Sword, Golden Dragon Spear, Black Dragon Mirror, White Dragon Sword, Golden Sun Divine Sword, Silver Moon Divine Sword. There was also the All-Creation Cauldron and the Edgeless Heavy Sword. The Edgeless Heavy Sword was the name of the heavy sword. In other words, now, Qin Fei Yang had 11 sovereign divine weapons in his hands. No. There seemed to be one missing sovereign divine weapon. It was Qi Yefeng's sovereign divine weapon, Heavenly Star Divine Sword. This meant that Qin Feiyong had a total of 12 sovereign divine armaments by his side. Chapter 37-36. 12 sovereign divine weapons, plus the Blood Ancestor and the Feng people's sovereign divine weapons. There were a total of 23. With so many sovereign divine weapons, it shouldn't be a problem to deal with one Black Flame Demon King. But if they wanted to compete with the Primal Chaos Divine King and the 10 Great Demon Kings, it was far from enough. After all, the Primal Chaos Divine King and the 10 Great Demon Kings each had a terrifying sovereign divine weapon. So, if they really wanted to fight head-on, they still had to join forces with the dragons. Land of Burial, Heavenly Cloud Sea. Qin Feiyong suddenly looked at the edgeless heavy sword and asked, "When you saw by Xiaotian, how many sovereign divine weapons did he have?" At that time, this sovereign saw 3. The edgeless heavy sword said, "What? 3? Qin Feiyong and Madman looked at each other. Didn't the white-eyed wolf only have 1 sovereign divine weapon? How did it become 3? Could it be that the other 2 were subdued in the Skybell divine treasure? This guy was indeed quite capable. With just his own strength and the Sky Palace's sovereign divine weapon, he was able to subdue 2 sovereign divine weapons." Madman secretly said, "Although it's a huge surprise, it's not hard to imagine that the process of him subduing 2 sovereign divine weapons was not ordinary. That's for sure. After all, he only has 1 sovereign divine weapon to protect himself." Qin Feiyong nodded. "Haha, now that our foundation is getting stronger and stronger, when we return to the Sky Cloud realm, the dragons, the Feng people, the Qilin clan, they will all be conquered by us." Madman laughed secretly. "We can't be careless. Long Chun, Qi Xiaoyun, these 2 can't be underestimated." Qin Feiyong shook his head. "Qi Xiaoyun," Madman murmured. When he went to the Qilin Holy Land, Madman went to the Yin Devil Land to temper his body, so he didn't know much about Qi Xiaoyun. Was he really that terrifying? You know, there are very few people in this world that I can't see through, but he is one of them. Moreover, didn't he also pass the Thunder Punishment Heavenly Stairway and successfully reach the top? Just from this point alone, we can see that he is not an ordinary person. Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. In truth, what he feared the most was Qi Xiaoyun's temperament. Calm and collected, unfazed by anything. This kind of temperament could only be seen in Long Chen and the mysterious youth. "Looks like I'll have to pay special attention to him in the future." Madman mumbled to himself and secretly laughed. But then again, the dragons have Long Chun, the Kirins have Qi Xiaoyun, and the Feng people. Madman glanced at Princess Huafeng and said with a sly smile, "The younger generation of Feng people seems to be lacking. I don't see many outstanding geniuses." Ugh. Qin Feiyong was stunned. These words were too infuriating. Which prince and princess of the 3 major races wasn't a rare genius? Take Princess Huafeng, for example. She had comprehended 2 supreme laws with her own ability. Was her talent bad? It was because compared to people like Long Chun and the mysterious youth, she wasn't as outstanding. Looks like the future hope of the Feng people is on this woman. We have to kidnap her. Madman laughed sinisterly. Qin Feiyong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If these words were heard by the Phoenix Empress, she would definitely be so angry that she would vomit blood. It wasn't easy for a descendant that she took a fancy to appear, and you actually planned to kidnap him? But thinking about it carefully, it was indeed difficult for someone like Bing Runing to become someone great. The future hope of the Feng people might really fall on Princess Huafeng's shoulders. If they could really kidnap her, it would indeed be beneficial for their future development. Several days passed. Suddenly, waves of heat surged from the ground ahead. The Blood Ancestor and Huadahong were stunned. They raised their heads and looked ahead. The mountains and rivers were devastated, as if a shocking battle had just happened. It was incomparably desolate. Of course, there was no battle here, because the Skybell Divine Treasure was like this. Between the mountains and rivers, there was heat everywhere. What's going on? The Blood Ancestor was suspicious. Daifuku, fly lower. Huadahong said. Okay. Daifuku spread his wings and swooped down. almost flying close to the mountains and rivers. The Blood Ancestor and Huadahong released their divine wills and rushed down below. They saw that there was actually boiling magma below the ground. Waves of fire rolled and magma surged like a crimson sea. And it was very big. Even their divine wills couldn't see the full picture of the magma sea. So it's magma. The Blood Ancestor nodded and immediately retracted his divine wills. It was normal for magma to be in a place like the Skybell Divine Treasure. As for the heat waves formed by the high temperature, it was naturally nothing for people of their level. There was no detour. Daifuku went straight into the mountain. But as they went deeper and deeper, the heat waves between heaven and earth became more and more terrifying, as if they were in a big furnace. Even people like the Blood Ancestor, Daifuku, and Huadahong felt as if they were on fire and were sweating profusely. Qin Feiyang, the mad scientist, and Princess Huafeng were also awakened. Because it was too hot, their clothes were soaked with sweat. This heat isn't normal. The mad scientist got up and looked at the mountain below with a frown. At this time, the mountains and rivers below had turned red, as if they had been burning in flames all year round. Some of the valleys were already filled with boiling magma. It's indeed not normal. With our cultivation, normal heat can't threaten us at all. The Blood Ancestor whispered. His divine will sank into the depths of the earth again. The magma here was even more terrifying, like a turbulent sea. These huge waves were more like roaring monsters, causing people to feel a chill in their hearts. Half an hour passed. Qin Feiyang and the others felt as if they were soaked in water and couldn't hold on any longer. The Blood Ancestor looked at everyone's miserable appearance, and the power of death rolled out, condensing into a barrier and quickly falling. With the appearance of this barrier, Qin Feiyang and the others suddenly felt very comfortable. To be honest, they hadn't experienced the feeling of being burned by high temperature for a long time. And half an hour later, Daifuku had already led Qin Feiyang and the others deep into the mountain. Here, they couldn't find the mountains anymore. They were all submerged in magma and had completely turned into a sea of magma. It was crazily churning, setting off huge waves thousands of feet high that covered the sky and the earth. Moreover, they found that the magma contained the power of thunder, and strands of fiery red lightning were running around in the magma. The power of thunder. Qin Feiyang frowned. How could the power of thunder appear in the magma? Look ahead to the left. Suddenly, Princess Huafeng pointed ahead, her face full of surprise. Qin Feiyang and the others looked over and saw that thousands of miles away, there was a mountain peak hundreds of feet high emerging from the magma sea. In the center of the mountain peak, there was a huge hole. Streams of lava spurted out like fountains. The lava that spurted out was thousands of feet high, like a crimson pillar that reached the heavens. And the power of thunder erupting from the hole was even more powerful. That should be the source. Such a terrifying temperature and the power of thunder. There must be something strange. Maybe there is some treasure. Let's go and take a look. Frenzy shivered and urged with a fiery gaze. Daifuku immediately led the group and flew towards the mountain peak. With the power of death isolating them, the high temperature and the power of thunder were no longer a threat to them. After a few breaths, the group came to the mountain peak and scanned the magma that was constantly spewing out. There were indeed streaks of fiery red thunder inside. At first glance, they looked like giant pythons roaring in the magma. The Blood Ancestor tried to open the barrier condensed by the power of death. When a crack appeared in the barrier, a terrifying wave of heat and a shocking power of thunder suddenly surged out like a flood. Apart from the 4 divine weapons of the creation cauldron, Qin Feiyang and the others instantly had bloody wounds on their bodies. Their bodies melted under the heat wave and were torn apart by the power of thunder. So terrifying? The Blood Ancestor's expression changed. He hurriedly waved his hand, and the cracked barrier quickly closed. Qin Feiyang and the others couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. The heat and the power of thunder were enough to destroy them both. Just in case, you all stay here. I will go down and take a look. The Blood Ancestor warned Qin Feiyang and the others. Then, he looked at the illusory demon orb beside him and said, "Come with me." "Okay." The illusory demon orb replied. Because of the blood oath, it didn't dare to act rashly and obediently followed the blood ancestor's orders. The blood ancestor waved his hand and formed another 3-meter-wide barrier. It seemed that he was still a bit worried, so he used the law of slaughter to form another barrier. With 2 barriers protecting him, the blood ancestor took the illusory demon orb and jumped down from Daifuku's head. He swept into the hole below and instantly disappeared into the magma. Qin Feiyong and the others waited anxiously. At the same time, they paid attention to the movements around them. In such a strange place, they couldn't be the slightest bit careless. Otherwise, they would end up crushed. Time passed quietly. About a few hundred breaths passed. With a whoosh, a blood-red figure rushed out of the magma hole like lightning. It was the blood ancestor. The illusory demon orb was next to him. However, at this moment, a gorgeous flame was floating in front of the blood ancestor. This flame was the size of a palm and contained the aura of thunder. When the blood ancestor entered the barrier and landed on Daifuku's head, Qin Feiyong and the others immediately looked at the flame. This is the extreme young lightning fire. Qin Feiyong's eyes trembled. There were many types of extreme young lightning fire, and not all of them were the same. The flame in front of them contained the power of thunder. It was a type of extreme young lightning fire. Isn't our luck too good? Whatever we need, we get it. Madman was also astonished. He never expected to encounter extreme young lightning fire. However, isn't the power of this extreme young lightning fire too terrifying? It can emit such terrifying heat and thunder power. Hua Dahong frowned. He had seen many extreme young lightning fires in the Sky Cloud realm, and there were many in the Foam People's treasury. However, this was the first time he had encountered such a terrifying extreme young lightning fire. This extreme young lightning fire is indeed incomparable to the ones we saw before, but the heat and thunder power here have nothing to do with it. The blood ancestor shook his head. What? It has nothing to do with it? When Qin Feiyong and the others heard this, their eyes were filled with surprise and doubt. Yes. Didn't you see that this ancestor didn't use the power of death to seal it? If the heat and thunder power here were emitted by it, then you would have been turned into ashes by now. The blood ancestor nodded. Qin Feiyong and the others looked at the extreme young lightning fire again. Indeed, there was no barrier around the extreme young lightning fire. The blood ancestor turned and looked at the hole in the mountain peak below. With a thought, the barrier condensed by the power of death cracked open again. Immediately, another terrifying heat wave and lightning energy surged toward Qin. Sure enough, the heat and thunder power here didn't weaken because of the departure of the extreme young lightning fire. Therefore, this proved that it had nothing to do with the extreme young lightning fire. The blood ancestor waved his hand, and the barrier closed. He said in a deep voice, according to this ancestor's speculation, it should be because the energy contained in the magma and thunder power here is too great, so over time, this unusual extreme young lightning fire was gradually born. So, there is something else at the source? Hua Dahong frowned. It must be so. The blood ancestor nodded. When Qin Feiyong and the others heard this, they also lowered their heads and looked at the hole in the mountain peak. What was it that could emit such terrifying heat and thunder power and even give birth to the extreme young lightning fire? Chapter 37:37. After a while, the madman looked at the blood ancestor and asked, Ancestor, didn't you go down just now? Apart from the extreme young lightning fire, did you see anything else? That's what I'm wondering about. There's a big cave inside. Apart from the extreme young lightning fire, the rest is lava. The blood ancestor frowned. Could the source be hidden in the depths of the lava? Qin Feiyong was surprised. It's possible. The blood ancestor nodded. Actually, it shouldn't be difficult to find it. We can follow the power of thunder because the source of the thunder must be even more terrifying. Qin Feiyong thought. Yes. As long as we follow the power of thunder, we will definitely find the source. The madman nodded. Although you're right, I don't dare to enter such a place. Furthermore, this ancestor feels uneasy in my heart. The blood ancestor frowned. Qin Feiyong and the madman looked at each other. They didn't expect that even someone like the blood ancestor would be afraid. Why don't we take advantage of the fact that there's no danger and leave this place quickly? Hua Dahong said hesitantly. Leave? Qin Feiyong, the madman, and the blood ancestor all looked at Hua Dahong. Why did they come to the Sky Bell Divine Treasure? Wasn't it to find opportunities? And now, what was in front of them might be a great opportunity. Of course, it might also be a great danger. However, opportunities and dangers always existed side by side. After all, there was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The madman said expressionlessly, if you want to leave, we won't stop you. But if there's really something down there, don't come back to us later. Hua Dahong looked down at the cave with a hesitant expression. Wealth comes from danger. Let's go down. The blood ancestor gritted his teeth and took Qin Feiyong and the madman out of the barrier formed by the power of death. They instantly disappeared into the cave below. Grandpa, Daifuku, are we really just going to watch? Princess Huofeng frowned. Although it's said that wealth comes from danger, what's the use of wealth if you lose your life? Let's stay here and wait for them to explore the situation. Hua Dahong said, isn't this just sitting back and enjoying the fruits of others' labor? We're in a cooperative relationship now. This isn't good. Princess Huofeng said, what's wrong with that? Although we are working together, we don't have to do everything together. Besides, they have so many sovereign divine weapons. If there's any danger, they should be able to protect themselves. In short, this time, you must listen to this old man. I can't let you continue causing trouble like this. Hua Dahong coldly snorted. Princess Huofeng lowered her head to look at the hole, her face full of worry. Below the hole, Qin Feiyong and the other two had already landed at the bottom of the cave. At the bottom, there was an endless expanse of magma. It was like an ocean buried deep underground, but it was more like a world of flames hidden deep underground. Waves of scarlet magma rolled over like an avalanche, emitting an aura that made one's heart palpitate. The three of them stood above the magma. With the protection of the death force barrier, it didn't matter. However, Madman frowned, looked up, and coldly snorted. They really haven't come down. This Hua Dahong is too timid and afraid of trouble. If that girl follows him, no matter how good her talent is, it will be wasted. The blood ancestor shook his head. He did have a good impression of Princess Huofeng. Whether it was her personality or talent, she was one in a million. But there was a good saying, if a jade was not carved, it would not become a treasure. No matter how good a piece of jade was, if it was left there without being cultivated or carved, it would be covered by dust sooner or later. This was the so-called bright pearl covered by dust. Qin Feiyong said, this is their own business. We don't need to worry about it. Let's hurry and find the source of the power of thunder. Madman retorted, how is this their own business? This is related to Brother Wolf's lifelong happiness. Brother Wolf? Blood Ancestor was slightly stunned. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, Ancestor, you don't know, right? The Bai Shaotian we are talking about is the white-eyed wolf. It's actually him? Blood Ancestor was stunned. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Madman bared his teeth. Blood Ancestor smiled bitterly. He didn't expect it to be this wolf cub. He asked suspiciously, then why did you hide it from that girl? We were deliberately provoking her and saying that the white-eyed wolf is already dead outside. Madman chuckled. Blood Ancestor was stunned. He looked at Qin Feiyong and Madman in confusion and asked, then why did you provoke her like this? What does she have to do with the white-eyed wolf? Qin Feiyong and Madman looked at each other. This ancestor seemed to be a little slow. I didn't expect you to be so slow. It must be because they like each other but are too embarrassed to say it. So we helped them and deliberately provoked Princess Huofeng, hoping to open a breakthrough. Qin Feiyong was helpless. Blood Ancestor was stunned again. The white-eyed wolf and Princess Huofeng liked each other? This was truly a piece of explosive news. Ancestor, you didn't expect the white-eyed wolf to be so charming, right? Qin Feiyong smiled. I didn't expect it. But this matter, I'm afraid it'll be difficult. Not to mention Huadahong and the others. I'm afraid even Feng Ho won't agree. Blood Ancestor shook his head. Where there's a will, there's a way. Qin Feiyang chuckled. You're quite confident. Now, I finally understand why you want the profound ice divine hammer and the void mirror. These sovereign divine weapons, to only be loyal to Princess Fire Phoenix. This is to prepare for the future situation. Blood Ancestor looked at the two of them with a mocking expression. What else can we do? We can't really let the Feng people take advantage of us. Madman laughed. Of course we can't let them take advantage of us. Back then, the human race paid a huge price in the war against the Divine Kingdom. All the overlords who grasped ultimate powers died in battle. The Feather Emperor, the Human Emperor, and I almost died several times. But in the end, how did the Feng people, the dragons, and the Kirans treat us? If they fought with us openly, we would be convinced even if we died. But they actually plotted against us behind our backs? If we don't repay this blood debt, I won't give up. Blood Ancestor snorted. We will. Qin Feiyang and Madman nodded. And in the future, when you deal with the Divine Kingdom, you must be careful. The so-called alliance against the Divine Kingdom is just an absurd excuse. They will definitely think of ways to plot against you behind your backs. Of course, the Feather Emperor and I will definitely be within their scope of calculation. Blood Ancestor warned. Don't worry, we've already thought of this. Qin Feiyang smiled. I'm quite assured with you guys doing things. Do your best. The student will surpass the master. The future situation will depend on you guys. Blood Ancestor smiled. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other and nodded with a smile. Don't flatter us. We'll do our best. Then let's go and see what's causing trouble. Blood Ancestor's eyes flashed red. Then, he closed his eyes and carefully sensed the source of the lightning power. Qin Feiyang and Madman did the same. As their senses extended, they soon found that the lightning power came from the depths of the magma below. Almost at the same time, the three of them opened their eyes and looked at the magma below. Then, like streaks of light, they plunged straight into the magma and rushed down. Why is there no movement at all? In the sky, Princess Wolfing stared at the calm crater of the volcano, the worry on her face growing stronger. There's no movement, which means they're still safe. Daifuku smiled. Huadahong glanced at Princess Wolfing and raised his eyebrows. This granddaughter of his seemed to be a little too concerned about Qin Feiyang and the others. What was the reason behind this? Was it because Qin Feiyang helped the siblings open the door of potential? But the Fire Phoenix clan had to pay a price to open the door of potential. No, there must be other factors behind this. Daifuku, tell me honestly, what's the relationship between Wu and them? There was no way he could get anything out of Princess Wolfing, so Huadahong looked for Daifuku. The sudden question caught Daifuku off guard. You have to understand something. No matter how the Feng people cooperate with Qin Feiyang and the others, they will eventually become enemies. If you tell me now, I can make preparations in advance. But if you help Wu or hide it from me, I'm afraid it will harm her sooner or later. Huadahong transmitted his voice. This, old master, this, you should ask His Highness personally. I really can't say much. Daifuku quickly calmed down and said secretly, if you're willing to tell me, why would I ask you? Huadahong was furious. Daifuku fell silent and didn't say a word, which made Huadahong extremely angry. Underground. At this time, Qin Feiyang and the other two had already gone deep into the ground. Everywhere they went, there was crimson magma. If the barrier of death were to suddenly shatter, the three of them would definitely die. So, just in case, Qin Feiyang also took out two sovereign divine weapons, the Crimson Longsword and the Death God Sword. Together with the Blood Ancestor's illusory demon orb, even if the barrier was accidentally broken, the three sovereign divine weapons would be enough to ensure their safety. It's getting closer and closer. Frenzy looked straight down, his eyes flashing. To be honest, entering this place, they couldn't see anything. Outside the barrier was all magma. Even divine sense couldn't enter the magma, because inside the magma, not only was the temperature astonishingly high, But the power of thunder was also increasingly terrifying. As soon as divine sense entered the magma, it would be instantly shattered. But fortunately, their perception wasn't affected. They could rely on their perception to follow the power of thunder all the way down. Another 100 breaths passed. At this time, they didn't know how deep they had gone, but they could clearly sense that the source of the power of thunder was already in front of them. Chapter 37-38. Suddenly, Qin Feiyong and the other two seemed to have encountered some resistance. The barrier blocking the power of death was unable to continue descending. A trace of surprise appeared on the faces of the three. But outside the barrier, there was nothing except the magma. What's going on? The madman was surprised. Let's try it. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and the power of karma appeared. It rushed out of the barrier and blasted into the magma below. With a loud bang, the magma suddenly surged up. The power of karma seemed to have hit an invisible barrier and was blocked outside. There must be something below? The blood ancestor's eyes flashed. In that case, let's use the sovereign divine weapon to split it open. The madman laughed and looked at the sword of Thanatos and the red longsword beside him. It's up to you. Clang. The two sovereign divine weapons rushed out of the barrier and slashed down with a sharp edge that could tear heaven and earth apart. Boom. Another loud explosion was heard, but the barrier in front of them was not broken. What the hell? Not to mention Qin Feiyong and the other two. Even the three sovereign divine weapons, the illusory demon orb, the sword of Thanatos, and the red longsword were shocked to the extreme. Two sovereign divine weapons were actually unable to break through the barrier? The most important thing was, they still had no idea what was blocking in front of them. There's finally movement, and it's the aura of the sword of Thanatos. They should have encountered some trouble. Grandpa, let's go down and take a look. Princess Huafeng looked at Huadahong and said, Don't worry. Huadahong waved his hand. Don't worry? Hearing this, Princess Huafeng couldn't help but feel a trace of anger in her heart. If this kind of behavior of watching the fire from the other side of the river were to spread, wouldn't they be ridiculed? Again. Inside the magma, the illusory demon orb also shouted coldly and rushed out of the barrier. Together with the sword of Thanatos, the two sovereign divine weapons once again slammed into the magma below. Along with an earth-shattering boom, there was a cracking sound from below, as if something had broken. I thought it was strong. The illusory demon orb smiled disdainfully. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong and Madman were speechless. The three sovereigns' divine weapons had to work together to cause some damage to the enemy. Was that not enough? Only an unruly sovereign divine weapon like the illusory demon orb would dare to say something like that. Continue. I'd like to see what the hell it is. The illusory demon orb snorted. The three sovereigns' divine weapons once again attacked with all their might. Crack! Another deafening explosion took place, as if a barrier had been broken. Following closely, under the gazes of Qin Feiyong and the other two, the lava below surged violently, revealing a vacuum zone. That was right. There was no magma in this vacuum zone. It was like a small world hidden in the depths of magma. However, in this vacuum, there was a terrifying power of thunder and a shocking power of fire. This is the aura of the laws of lightning and the laws of fire. The blood progenitor was energized. He quickly took Qin Feiyong and the blood progenitor into the vacuum zone, and the three sovereign divine weapons followed closely behind. After entering the vacuum zone, there was no magma obstructing their vision. Qin Feiyong and the other two scanned their surroundings. Suddenly, their gazes locked onto the center of the vacuum zone, and their eyes were filled with shock. There were two clusters of flames floating in the air. The two clusters of flames were very spectacular. What was even more strange was that they looked like two babies. One of the clusters of flames was pure fire. It exuded a terrifying heat that seemed to be able to melt everything. The other cluster of flames was thunder fire. It exuded an incomparably terrifying aura. What the hell is this? Qin Feiyong and the blood progenitor came back to their senses in shock. The blood progenitor didn't answer. He sized up the two clusters of flames. His eyes flickered as if he had guessed what they were, but he wasn't sure. This is an inheritance. The illusory demon orb suddenly said. Inheritance? What inheritance? Qin Feiyong and the blood progenitor looked at the illusory demon orb in shock. Nonsense. Of course it's an ultimate inheritance. The universal cauldron flew out of Qin Feiyong's body and said something that shocked the two. What? An ultimate inheritance? Qin Feiyong and the blood progenitor looked at each other. That's right. This is the inheritance of an ultimate profound. The little rabbit once received an ultimate inheritance. The inheritance it received was in the form of a baby, just like these two inheritances. The blood progenitor nodded and couldn't help but become excited. He never expected that there would be two ultimate inheritances hidden under the lava. And this was the source of their search. After receiving confirmation from the blood progenitor, Qin Feiyong and the blood progenitor looked at each other and were extremely excited. Fortunately, Hua Dahong and the others hadn't followed them. Otherwise, they would have to share a share of the loot. Let's get them quickly, the blood progenitor shouted. No matter what supreme treasure they encountered, it would only truly belong to them after they obtained it. Qin Feiyong and the blood progenitor nodded. The three of them immediately rushed toward the two inheritances. The four sovereigns' divine weapons stood guard beside him. Who has the guts to disturb this king's meditation? But before they could get close, a murderous voice suddenly sounded from the thunder fire. There's someone hiding in the thunder fire? Qin Feiyong and the other two were greatly alarmed. They immediately braked and stopped in midair, looking at the thunder fire. The next moment, a strand of hair-like flame floated out of the thunder fire. This strand of flame was unremarkable and didn't have a strong aura. However, the illusory demon orb and the cauldron of all creation were trembling. At the same time, a trace of shock appeared in the blood progenitor's eyes. What's going on? Noticing the abnormality of the blood progenitor and the two ruler weapons, Qin Feiyong, the sword of the Grim Reaper, and the red longsword were all suspicious. This is the aura of the Queen of Flames. Run! The illusory demon orb and the cauldron of all creation suddenly roared and immediately swept up Qin Feiyong, the sword of the Grim Reaper, and the red longsword to escape. The Queen of Flames? Qin Feiyong and the blood progenitor were shocked. The Queen of Flames is one of the 10 demon kings under the divine king of chaos. The blood progenitor said. What? Qin Feiyong and the blood progenitor were shocked. You want to leave? The Queen of the Sun's voice sounded again as a terrifying aura burst out. Qin Feiyong and the blood progenitor turned around and saw that the strand of hair-like flame had turned into a stunning woman. She was about 1.75 meters tall and wore a fiery red dress. Her hair was also red like fire, and her eyes were like two scorching suns. From afar, the Queen of Flames looked like an empress standing in the flames. At the same time, she exuded a terrifying aura. Why is she here? Wait, she should be here to inherit the ultimate meaning of the law of thunder. Damn it, why did we encounter this terrifying demon king? The cauldron of all creation and the illusory demon orb roared. As the ruler weapons of the Skybell divine treasure, they were most afraid of the divine king of chaos and the 10 demon kings. This was an instinctive fear. When they saw the divine king of chaos and the 10 demon kings, their first thought was to escape. They didn't have the courage to fight against the divine king of chaos and the 10 demon kings. The Queen of Flames glanced at the two ruler weapons, the cauldron of all creation, and then looked at Qin Feiyong and the other two, the sword of Thanatos and the red sword. Suddenly, her eyes locked on the blood progenitor as murderous intent flashed in her eyes. She laughed and said, I didn't expect to meet you here. It's not me. You have the wrong person, the blood progenitor said without turning his head. He was also cursing his bad luck in his heart. Back then, after he and the Feather Emperor went to the divine king of chaos lair and stole the secret technique, the Queen of Flames chased after them. He was very afraid of this demon king. At this moment, he finally understood that the demon king was the source of the uneasiness in his heart. I'll recognize you even if you turn into ashes, the Queen of Flames sneered. Two strands of the power of law rolled out, blotting out the sky as they charged towards Qin Feiyang and the others. The law of destruction, the law of fire. Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist were shocked. This woman actually grasped two ultimate profundities of the laws. Let's talk nicely. The blood progenitor roared. Humph! The queen of flames snorted. Accompanied by a loud clanging sound, a long flaming weapon appeared. It was 3 feet long, as if it was cast from flesh and magma, and it was surrounded by crimson and blood-red flames. This is her ruler weapon, the flame magic sword. The blood progenitor exclaimed, "Kill!" With the queen of flames' cold shout, the flame magic sword suddenly rolled up a monstrous wave of blood and fire. Along with the two power of law, it slashed towards Qin Feiyang and the others. At this moment, the entire ground was shaking. Crimson lava erupted from the ground like pillars of fire. Princess Wolfing and the other two, standing in the sky, looked at this scene with shock. How could there be such a big movement? A vacuum zone. Qin Feiyang made up his mind and shouted, "Stop! Counterattack! Counterattack!" The universal cauldron and illusory demon orb were shocked. Right now, we are no longer as weak as we were when we encountered the Black Flame Devil King. Even though she is one of the 10 great Devil Kings, and even though the Raging Flame Devil Sword is a sovereign divine weapon that surpasses the lower level, we still have the power to fight. Qin Feiyang shouted coldly. Hearing this, the mad scientist and the blood ancestor also turned to face the flame magic sword and the two power of law. That's right. They couldn't be intimidated by the other party from the beginning. That would be too passive. Moreover, it was just as Qin Feiyang had said. They were no longer the same as before. Aside from Princess Wolfing, they now had 13 ruler weapons. The Cauldron of Everything, the Illusory Demon Orb, the Grim Reaper's Sword, the Crimson Sword, the Ancient Castle, the Ice Phoenix Sword, the Celestial Sword, the Gold Sun Sword, the Silver Moon Sword, the Golden Dragon Spear, the White Dragon Sword, the Black Dragon Mirror, and the Edgeless Heavy Sword. Although the Edgeless Heavy Sword's main body hadn't been repaired yet, even if it couldn't participate in the battle, they still had 12 ruler weapons. Moreover, there was the Blood Ancestor, a supreme expert who could compete with a ruler weapon. All in all, they had 13 ruler weapons. This kind of lineup should be enough to fight. Then let's do it. The Cauldron of Everything and the Illusory Demon Orb were also two ruthless characters. When they thought about how Qin Feiyang still had so many ruler weapons, they immediately wanted to kill the Queen of Flames. Chapter 37-39. Clang, clang. As the Cauldron of all creation and the Illusory Demon Orb landed, the Sword of the Grim Reaper and the Crimson Longsword immediately charged toward the Raging Flames Magic Sword and the two laws. The 4 ruler weapons also charged forward. The two powers of the Queen of Flames laws shattered with a loud bang. After all, it wasn't an ultimate intent, but a pure law. Although the pure power of laws had reached the level of ultimate intent, it was still inferior to the 4 fully awakened sovereign divine weapons. Boom! Immediately after, the 4 ruler weapons clashed with the Raging Flames magic sword. Accompanied by a deafening explosion, the Cauldron of all creation and the 4 ruler weapons were sent flying by the Raging Flames magic sword. Qin Feiyang and the others were dumbfounded. This Raging Flames magic sword was too strong. With his own strength, he was still able to hold the upper hand in the face of the 4 sovereign divine weapons. This is a ruler weapon. There is a huge difference between each level of ruler weapon. Even if it's a mid-level dominator weapon, it can still easily crush a low-level dominator weapon. Therefore, we only have one method, which is to win with numbers. The Blood Ancestor said, "Win with numbers? You dare to boast with a mere dominator weapon?" The Queen of Flames' face was full of contempt. The Blood Ancestor lowered his head to look at the Queen of Flames. Seeing her disdainful face, he couldn't help but be enraged. He sent a message to Qin Feiyang and frenzied. "We must get those 2 ultimate Upanishads. Let her know the price of underestimating us." "Okay," Qin Feiyang and the madman replied. "Also, you can take out 2 ruler weapons to protect yourself. As for the other ruler weapons, don't let them appear for now." Let this woman be careless first, then give her a fatal blow when she least expects it. After saying that, the blood ancestor activated the ultimate intent of the law of death. Boom. The 18 levels of hell appeared out of nowhere, like 18 vast worlds. With a terrifying aura, they pressed down on the Queen of Flames. Qin Feiyong and Madman looked at each other and immediately took out the Gold Sun Divine Sword and Silver Moon Divine Sword. The two of them each grabbed a sword. With a sovereign divine weapon in hand, they felt a lot more confident. However, the Gold Sun Godly Sword and the Silver Moon Godly Sword were still nervous. 6 sovereign weapons? The Queen of Flame glanced at the two swords with a hint of surprise on her face, but it was immediately replaced by disdain. Immediately after, she looked at the blood ancestor. The ultimate profundity of the laws of death. It seems that the secret technique stolen from the Divine King has allowed you to grow quite a bit, but that's it. The Queen of Flames sneered. The Edict of Destruction surged out like a torrent into the sky, transforming into a giant eye. This eye was over 30 kilometers in size, and it was like the eye of the Heaven Tao. The energy of destruction within it roared like a bottomless abyss. Even with the protection of the two divine swords, Qin Feiyong and the mad scientist couldn't help but feel a sense of fear. This is the ultimate profundity of the laws of destruction. The heavenly eye of destruction. A ray of light of destruction can destroy the world. The Gold Sun Godly Sword said. Qin Feiyong and the mad scientist were shocked. None of the 10 demon kings were undeserving of their reputation. As soon as the Gold Sun Godly Sword finished speaking, the heavenly eye of destruction opened and a ray of light of destruction shot out, shattering everything in its path as it charged toward the 18 levels of hell. With a loud bang, the lowest level of hell collapsed on the spot. So, the heavenly eye of destruction shot out a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh ray of light of destruction. The 18 levels of hell continued to collapse one after another. The 4 sovereign divine weapons, the universal cauldron and the sword of Thanatos, were also fighting with the blazing magic sword, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't turn the situation around. Their bodies were seriously injured one after another, and cracks appeared all over their bodies. Too strong. If the blazing magic sword was only a mid-level sovereign divine weapon, we might still have a chance, but if it's a sovereign divine weapon that surpasses the mid-level, I'm afraid it'll be a bloody battle, Madman said. Silver Moon Godly Sword, Gold Sun Godly Sword. Do you know the level of the blazing magic sword? Qin Feiyong asked. No. In any case, we used to stay away from them when we encountered them. None of the sovereign divine weapons in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure dared to offend them. Of course, it's also difficult to encounter them. After all, they're not on the same level as us. In their eyes, low-level sovereign divine weapons like us are no different from ants. The 2 sovereign divine swords. Difficult. Qin Feiyong rubbed his forehead. Although opportunities and risks existed side by side, this risk was a little too great. Looking at the battle between the Blood Ancestor and the Queen of Flames, only one of the 18 levels of hell was left. However, after losing 17 levels of hell, the remaining level of hell finally reached the heavenly eye of destruction. Boom. The 2 ultimate profound meanings clashed. A terrifying aura erupted. Coupled with the fluctuations from the battle between the 4 sovereign divine weapons, the blazing magic sword and the sword of the Grim Reaper, the entire ground exploded and lava roared in all directions. Princess Huofeng and the other 2, who were originally standing in the air above the mountain range, had already retreated far away. Their eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the collapsing mountains and rivers, as well as the giant waves of lava that engulfed heaven and earth. Just what kind of terrifying figure had they encountered that caused such a terrifying battle to erupt? Boom. Clang. In the next moment, the 4 sovereign divine weapons, the demonic flame palace and the sword of the Grim Reaper, charged out of the lava and into the sky. Terrifying fluctuations from the battle surged out in all directions. The void was annihilated, the sky collapsed, and the mountains collapsed and shattered. This was a scene that resembled the end of the world. What? The cauldron of all creation, the illusory demon orb, the sword of the Grim Reaper, the sovereign divine weapon of the demonic palace. The 4 sovereign divine weapons were actually no match for that magic sword. Princess Wuffing and the other 2 were dumbfounded as they looked at the severely damaged cauldron of all things and the 4 sovereign divine weapons. They couldn't believe it. Princess Wuffing regained her senses and immediately prepared to ask the Fire Phoenix Divine Jade and the other sovereign divine weapons for help. Don't worry. We don't know what's going on. Let's retreat and take a look first. Without any explanation, Wadahong stopped Princess Wuffing and asked Dafu to take them to the sky above the mountain range even further away at lightning speed. Grandfather, Princess Wuffing was very dissatisfied with Wadahong's attitude. You have to listen to me this time. It's very likely that this is a big problem, Wadahong said in a low voice, but we can't just stand by and watch. Princess Wuffing frowned. Seeing Huafeng repeatedly contradicting him, Wadahong's anger rose from his heart. He shouted, "Have you grown wings? You don't even listen to your grandfather's words?" Princess Wuffing was so angry that she was speechless. In the depths of the magma, the vacuum zone had also collapsed. The Raging Flame's magic sword has left. Take advantage of this moment and let the other sovereign divine weapons appear. Kill this woman and snatch the 2 inheritances. The Blood Ancestor secretly shouted to Qin Feiyong and the Madman. Qin Feiyong and the Madman heard this, and a trace of killing intent appeared in their eyes. This was indeed a good opportunity. The demon sword of Raging Flames was indeed very powerful, but it was now entangled by the sword of Thanatos and the other 4 Dominator's divine weapons. Moreover, the Queen of Flame was alone now. Even if she had mastered 6 ultimate mysteries, how could she block the remaining 8 Dominator's divine weapons? Moreover, this woman had inherited the lightning and fire ultimate mysteries here, so she definitely hadn't mastered the 6 ultimate mysteries. Kill. The 2 roared as they held the 2 divine swords and used the space-time step and go steps to attack the Queen of Flames. The Blood Ancestor also opened the 18 levels of hell again. You are courting death. But even so, the Queen of Flames didn't panic at all. Her fiery red eyes revealed a shocking cold light. Hey! Qin Feiyong and the Madman grinned. The castle, the Ice Phoenix Sword, the Heavenly Star Sword, the Golden Dragon Spear, the White Dragon Sword, and the Black Dragon Mirror all appeared in an instant. What? The Queen of Flames' expression changed. There were still so many sovereign divine weapons? Crush her! The Blood Ancestor roared as the 18 levels of hell pressed down. The Silver Moon Divine Sword and the Golden Sun Divine Sword also left the hands of Qin Feiyong and the Madman. Together with the castle and the other 6 sovereign divine weapons, they crazily attacked the Queen of Flames. The edgeless heavy sword also appeared. Although its body hadn't been repaired, it was still enough to protect Qin Feiyong and the Madman. At this moment, Qin Feiyong and the Madman rushed toward the 2 ultimate mysteries under the protection of the edgeless heavy sword. How dare you? Raging Flame's magic sword. How long are you going to play? Immediately crush them for this king. The Queen of Flames roared. At the top of the clouds, the Raging Flame's magic sword heard the roar of the Queen of Flames and immediately erupted with a monstrous might that was even more terrifying than before. It seemed that it hadn't used all its strength before. Raging Flame's magic sword? Isn't this one of the legendary 10 Demon Kings, the Queen of Flames' sovereign divine weapon? Huadahong was shocked. Daifuku asked, "So, the owner of that voice is the Queen of Flames? It must be her. Quickly hide." Huadahong roared anxiously. Princess Huafeng hurriedly said, "Grandfather, since the other party is the Queen of Flames, then we can't just stand by and watch." "Shut up. Do you want to die?" Huadahong shouted angrily. It seemed that he was also intimidated by the name of the 10 Demon Kings and didn't even have the courage to fight. Crack. It was also at this moment. In the clouds, the 4 sovereign divine weapons of the cauldron of all creation shattered one after another. The demons that couldn't block the Raging Flame's magic sword were all torn apart. Looking at this scene, Huadahong panicked to the extreme. He swept up Princess Huafeng and Daifuku and escaped without looking back. No matter what Princess Huafeng said, he didn't have any intention of stopping. After the Raging Flame's magic sword severely injured the four sovereign divine weapons of the Cauldron of All Creation, it didn't pay attention to the four sovereign divine weapons, nor did it pay attention to Huadahong and the other two. In fact, when it came out from underground, it had already sensed the aura of Huadahong and the other two, but it didn't pay attention to them at all. Clang. Following closely, it swooped down, carrying a destructive demonic might, and attacked Qin Feiyong and the others underground. Chapter 3740. The Raging Flame's magic sword is coming. Quick. Sensing the rapidly approaching Raging Flame's magic sword, the Blood Ancestor's face was full of anxiety. There was only one chance. If he missed it, it would be even harder to snatch these two inheritances than to reach the heavens. Kill. The battle cries of the 8 Dominator divine weapons shook the sky. They reached the Queen of Flames before the Blood Ancestor's ultimate technique, the 18 levels of hell. You're courting death. The Queen of Flames roared. A destructive power, a space-time power, and a flame power roared out. What? The strength of the space-time law and the fire law? They've reached the ultimate level. In that case, she has mastered 3 ultimate techniques. Qin Feiyong and the madman were both shocked. Don't give her a chance to activate her ultimate technique. The Blood Ancestor roared. Clang. The 8 sovereign divine weapons, including the ancient castle, swarmed toward the Queen of Flames. Their terrifying auras and auras drowned the Queen of Flames. The 18 levels of hell also arrived. The destructive ripples of the battle immediately spread out in all directions. The earth shattered, and the void collapsed. This world instantly turned into chaos, as if it was the beginning of the world. But at this moment, the Raging Flame's magic sword came and blocked the Queen of Flames. Its terrifying divine power was earth-shattering, and it actually collided with the 18 levels of hell and the 8 Dominator divine weapons. At the same time, the heavy sword swept up Qin Feiyong and the madman and rushed to the two inheritances at full speed. Qin Feiyong and the madman each grabbed an inheritance and didn't dare to stay. They shouted at the Dominator divine weapons, "Let's go!" They had already obtained the inheritances, so there was no need to risk their lives. First was the heavy sword. It took Qin Feiyong and the madman and rushed to the Blood Ancestor like lightning. It swept up the Blood Ancestor and flew away without looking back. The Blood Ancestor immediately used the power of death to seal the two inheritances and cut off the connection with the Queen of Flames. The 8 Dominator divine weapons didn't care about the Queen of Flames and the Raging Flames magic sword. They turned around and chased after Qin Feiyong and the other two. Above, the Sword of the Grim Reaper and the other 4 sovereign divine weapons also rushed over to meet up with Qin Feiyong and the others. "Are you guys all right?" Qin Feiyong asked with concern. "I won't die for now. However, our current situation is very bad. The power of the Blaze magic sword is beyond our imagination." The All-Creation Cauldron said in a deep voice, "Where are Huadahong and the others?" Madman said furiously. The Illusory Demon Orb said angrily, "Don't talk about them. When you mention them, I get angry." When they saw us being severely injured by the flame magic sword, they didn't come to help. They only cared about running for their lives. What a bunch of cowards. It's not just cowardly and incompetent. I think they're worse than trash. The Void Mirror is simply burying its talent by following them. The All-Creation Cauldron snorted coldly. Edgeless Heavy Sword also said to Qin Feiyong, "That's right. You shouldn't have let the Void Mirror follow them. Now that things have come to this, there's no point in saying these things." Qin Feiyong shook his head. In fact, he didn't need to think to know that the one who advocated escaping was definitely Huadahong. Although the Fire Phoenix Sword and other sovereign divine weapons were all with Princess Huafeng, Huadahong was her grandfather after all. She couldn't go against Huadahong's wishes. "Let's see where you can escape to today." Suddenly, the angry voice of the Queen of Flames sounded from behind. Qin Feiyong, madman. Blood Ancestor turned his head to look and his expression changed. At this moment, The blaze magic sword was crazily chasing after them with the Queen of Flames. Moreover, the blaze magic sword's speed was much faster than theirs. In the blink of an eye, it had closed the distance by a large margin. Looking at the Queen of Flames' face again, it was extremely gloomy at this moment, and her eyes were emitting a strong killing intent. Edgeless heavy sword, your current speed is too slow. I'll do it, Heavenly Star Sword said anxiously. He took the edgeless heavy sword's courage and led Qin Feiyong and the others, as well as a group of sovereign divine weapons, to escape crazily. There was no other way. The edgeless heavy sword had not recovered from its serious injuries, so its speed could not be at its peak. It was also sullen. With so many sovereign divine weapons and the supreme existence of Blood Ancestor, they could only escape. But the blaze magic sword was indeed powerful. Not only were the 4 sovereign divine weapons of the Cauldron of All Things unable to defeat it, but they were also heavily injured by it. Its strength was simply beyond imagination. Wait, but suddenly, Qin Feiyong looked at the Queen of Flames and the blaze magic sword with a trace of surprise in his eyes. The Queen of Flames and the blaze magic sword were not unscathed. There were several large and small wounds on the Queen of Flames' body, and blood was flowing out. There were also several cracks on the blaze magic sword's body. Obviously, this was caused by the combined attack of the 8 sovereign divine weapons of the ancient castle and the Blood Ancestor's ultimate profound, the 18 levels of hell. In other words, the 8 sovereign divine weapons combined could indeed pose a certain threat to the blaze magic sword. We definitely can't escape. Their speed is fast. Why don't we go all out and fight them? Qin Feiyong clenched his hands and looked at the Blood Ancestor, the mad scientist, and the sovereign divine weapons. You're crazy. The Cauldron of All Things cursed. If he wasn't crazy, why would he have such a crazy idea? But the Blood Ancestor and the mad scientist remained silent. Suddenly, the Blood Ancestor's eyes lit up. He looked up at Qin Feiyong and asked, "Can your Eye of Heaven copy the ultimate profound meaning?" If the Eye of Heaven could copy the ultimate profound meaning, they would definitely be able to turn the tables. Because as long as he activated 3,000 clones and copied the ultimate profound meaning of the law of death, it would be 3,000 ultimate profound meanings. 3,000 ultimate profound meanings of the law of death were equivalent to 3,000 sovereign divine weapons. How terrifying was that? I don't know. I haven't tried. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Then let's try, the Blood Ancestor said firmly. Since Qin Feiyong had already merged with the Eye of Heaven of the dragons, he should be able to copy the ultimate profound meaning. After all, Qin Feiyong's Eye of Heaven was now flawless. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded and decisively activated the Eye of Heaven. The Blood Ancestor waved his hand and the ultimate profound meaning, the 18 levels of hell, appeared. Copy, Qin Feiyong roared. The Eye of Heaven sprinkled down a bright divine light that shrouded the 18 levels of hell. The Heavenly Star Divine Sword didn't stop because of this and continued to lead everyone to run. If they couldn't copy it, wouldn't stopping now be the same as waiting for death? The mad scientist and the other sovereign divine weapons looked at the Eye of Heaven expectantly. The Universal Cauldron murmured, "This is one of the legendary 10 strongest battle souls? I've been in the world for countless years, but this is the first time I've seen it. I just don't know if it's as powerful as the legends say." The Golden Sun Divine Sword whispered. At the same time, the Queen of Flames also recognized the Eye of Heaven and was surprised. She didn't expect it to be someone who had activated one of the 10 strongest battle souls. However, like the others, although she knew about the 10 strongest battle souls, she hadn't seen it with her own eyes. She didn't know if the 10 strongest battle souls lived up to their reputation or not. Looking at the sky again, the purple gold dragon soul roared in the sky, and the Eye of Heaven between its eyebrows released a dazzling divine light like a dazzling sun. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying aura of death appeared above the purple gold dragon soul. Then, with a loud bang, the first level of the 18 levels of hell gradually appeared. It can be copied? The mad scientist was shaken and the anticipation in his eyes was even stronger. The blood ancestor and the other sovereign divine weapons were also overjoyed. Since it could copy the first level of hell, it could definitely copy the second, third, and fourth levels. But Qin Fei Yang wasn't happy at all. Although it could be copied, it couldn't be copied all at once. And the copying speed was a bit too slow. Taking a step back, even if he could copy all the 18 levels of hell, with this tortoise-like speed, he wouldn't be able to fight the other party in time. One had to know. In a battle of this level, it was a race against time. If there was a slight delay, the other party would be able to seize the opportunity to kill you. Boom. 5 breaths passed. The second level of hell appeared. 5 breaths of time would pass quickly under normal circumstances, but in a battle, it was enough time for the other party to seize the opportunity. Isn't this a little too slow? The mad scientist and the blood ancestor couldn't help but frown. At this speed, wouldn't it take at least 80 to 90 breaths of time to copy the 18 levels of hell? If one level is copied every 5 breaths of time, then the 18 levels of hell will take 90 breaths of time. 90 breaths. A battle of this level is constantly changing. How can we make it in time? The other sovereign divine weapons couldn't help but sigh. It seemed that even if the Eye of Heaven could be copied, someone would need to buy time for Qin Fei Yang. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. Let's just take a gamble and try to buy time for him. The golden dragon spear said, "That's right. Running like this isn't a solution at all. We can only truly escape if we defeat them head-on." The ice phoenix sword said, "In that case, let's fight it out with them." The cauldron of all creation roared. Although the cauldron of all creation, the sword of Thanatos, the illusory demon orb, the crimson long sword, and the edgeless greatsword were all heavily injured, they didn't retreat. Blood ancestor, you're responsible for protecting Qin Fei Yang and the mad scientist. Qin Fei Yang, we're betting on you this time. You mustn't let us down. And little madman, you can also use your blood eye to interfere with them. The white dragon sword roared and immediately turned around. Divine power surged out of him as he charged toward the Queen of Flames and the Inferno magic sword. Kill. The ice phoenix sword, the golden dragon spear, the black dragon mirror, the silver moon divine sword, the golden sun divine sword, the heavenly star divine sword, and the ancient castle followed closely behind. Because they were now in perfect condition, they naturally had to be the vanguard. As for the void mirror, the crimson long sword, the sword of Thanatos, the illusory demon orb, and the edgeless greatsword, they could only assist them from the side. At the same time, the blood ancestor also took the mad scientist and Qin Fei Yang and retreated at lightning speed. Whoosh! Qin Fei Yang made a prompt decision and activated his 3,000 clones. Roar! 3,000 purple gold dragon souls appeared, accompanied by a series of resonant dragon roars. The next moment, the 3,000 clones of the Eye of Heaven opened one after another, and rays of divine light flooded toward the blood ancestor's ultimate intent. Chapter 3741. What a bunch of ants who don't know what death is. Seeing this, the flame magic sword couldn't help but smile coldly and arrogantly. The blood-red and crimson swords emitted a monstrous murderous aura, and the terrifying sharpness rushed towards the sovereign divine weapons. Clang! Clang! The 8 sovereign divine weapons, including the ancient castle, didn't retreat. Their divine power and sharpness swept through the world, meeting the sharpness of the flame magic sword. The world and mountains here were also annihilated in an instant. Fortunately, there were no other creatures here. Because of the Queen of Flame, the skeleton didn't dare to approach this place. Otherwise, it would be a disaster now. Ants trying to shake a tree. The Queen of Flame also smiled disdainfully. The law of destruction and the law of spacetime rolled out. Obviously, she was going to activate the ultimate meaning of the 2 strongest laws. But at this moment, she raised her eyebrows and looked down at herself, only to find that her body was rapidly petrifying. What's going on? A trace of surprise crept into the Queen of Flame's eyes. The power of the 2 laws surged, forcibly interrupting the petrification state. The strength of the strongest law reaching the ultimate meaning is indeed different, the madman whispered. At this moment, his blood eye had been opened, staring at the Queen of Flame. But even so, it couldn't really petrify the Queen of Flame, because the Queen of Flame's two strongest laws could forcibly break his petrification ability. However, the blood eye also brought a lot of trouble to the Queen of Flame, because as long as the madman kept the blood eye open, the Queen of Flame would continue to be petrified, which annoyed the Queen of Flame. Soon, the Queen of Flame also noticed the source of the petrification, which came from the blood eye between the madman's eyebrows. She was even more shocked. Generally speaking, as long as one reached the sovereign realm, no matter how powerful the war soul was before, it was useless. But now, why was a mere blood-red eye able to pose such a huge threat to a sovereign? Could this also be one of the 10 strongest war souls? But the 10 strongest war souls didn't seem to have such a blood eye. In the blink of an eye, 10 breaths passed. The 3,000 incarnations had already replicated the second level of hell. Qin Feiyang's Eye of Heaven had already replicated the 5th level of hell, but it was still too slow. Qin Feiyang wanted to speed up, but he couldn't. This was already the limit. Don't worry. Judging from the current situation, the castles can still hold on for a while. The blood ancestor comforted him. Now, he could only place his hopes on the sovereigns in the castle. I really wonder, why is the blaze magic sword so powerful? Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. It's like a heaven-defying divine artifact. A mid-grade heaven-defying divine artifact has the power to crush low-grade heaven-defying divine artifacts. The blood ancestor sighed. Actually, I also understand this logic. However, because I have never seen such a Dominator divine weapon before, I find it a little hard to accept. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Sure enough, there was always someone better out there. The blood ancestor pondered for a moment before sighing. To be honest, what I'm most worried about right now is how to rescue Li Feng and Lu Ding in the future. Upon hearing this, Qin Feiyang's mood became particularly heavy. The Queen of Flame and the Fire Magic Sword were already enough to force them to this extent, let alone the Queen of Flame and the Fire Magic Sword, who were even stronger than the Chaos Divine King and the Chaos Royal City. And don't forget, in addition to the Chaos Divine King and the Chaos Royal City, there were 9 other Demon Kings and 9 Dominator Divine Weapons. These 9 Demon Kings and 9 Dominator Divine Weapons weren't any weaker than the Queen of Flame and the Fire Magic Sword. Even if he joined forces with the Feng people, the dragons, the Kirans, the Land of the Buried Gods, and the Sea Lion Emperor of the Sky Cloud Sea, they still wouldn't be a match for these people. Only now did he realize that he had underestimated the strength of the Chaos Divine King and the 10 Demon Kings. He thought that by joining forces, they would have a chance, but in reality, they were still far from it. The road ahead was fraught with worry. Boom. Clang. The battle was incomparably intense. The 8 Dominator Divine Weapons, including the Ancient Castle, were all heavily damaged. The 5 Dominator Divine Weapons, including the Universal Cauldron, were even more injured. Fortunately, the Fire Magic Sword's injuries were also worsening under the crazy bombardment of the Ancient Castle and the other 8 Dominator Divine Weapons. How annoying. The Queen of Flame was still petrified. In any case, the madman didn't care about anything now. He just kept staring at the Queen of Flame. His blood eye, facing the powerful Queen of Flame, was also extremely uncomfortable. Not only was it sore, but there was also a tearing feeling and a sense of fatigue. This was because the blood eye had exhausted too much energy, and the madman was already fighting with his life. At this moment, time seemed to be very long. Every second felt like a century. Another 30 breaths passed. The 3,000 incarnations had already replicated the 8 levels of hell. Qin Feiyang himself had replicated the 11 levels of hell. 7 more levels to go. The 3,000 incarnations still needed 10 more levels. To replicate the 18 levels of hell, they needed another 50 breaths of time. Ever since they stepped into the Dominator realm, Qin Feiyang and the madman had never been so anxious when fighting others. Even further away. Sensing the fluctuations of the battle here, Princess Huofeng was extremely anxious. Hua Dahong looked at Princess Huofeng and said in a deep voice, "If you dare to go, this old man will sever ties with you." "But they are in danger," Princess Flame Phoenix exclaimed. "It is precisely because there is danger that this old man can't let you die." Hua Dahong coldly snorted as he looked at the battlefield in the distance. Killing intent flashed in the depths of his eyes. Wasn't this a good opportunity to get rid of Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the blood ancestor? No matter how capable they were, it was impossible for them to defeat the Queen of Flame and the flame magic sword. As long as his granddaughter didn't go to help, the three of them would undoubtedly die. "Grandfather," Princess Huofeng tightly clenched her hands together, and her expression was filled with helplessness. Her grandfather had already used the words severed ties. What else could she do? She could only feel guilty towards Qin Feiyang and the others. Daifuku didn't interrupt, because he didn't have the qualifications to interrupt and didn't dare to contradict Hua Dahong. In fact, his original intention was to help. But there was no other way. If Princess Huofeng and Hua Dahong didn't help, with his strength, he wasn't even qualified to be cannon fodder. "Ah, battlefield." Lunatic suddenly let out a miserable howl. Qin Feiyang and the blood ancestor hurriedly turned to look at Lunatic and found that the blood eye between his eyebrows had burst open. Streams of blood surged out and instantly dyed his entire face red. It was a ghastly sight. "Sorry, my blood eye has reached its limit," Lunatic said apologetically. At this moment, he felt a strong sense of fear towards the ultimate mysteries. This was because there had never been a situation where his blood eye had reached its limit before. If the Queen of Flame's destruction law and space-time law hadn't reached the ultimate mysteries, then he was 100% confident that he could completely petrify her. But now, his strength didn't allow him to do so. The power of these two laws could easily break his petrification. Central battlefield. The moment Lunatic's blood eye shattered, the Queen of Flame finally made her move. The ultimate mysteries of the destruction law, the heaven's eye of destruction, appeared high in the sky. Rays of light of destruction constantly spewed out and attacked the 5 sovereign divine weapons. Crack! The sword of death, cauldron of all creation, illusory demon orb, edgeless heavy sword, and crimson longsword were already heavily injured. Their bodies disintegrated one after another. If they were at their peak, they wouldn't be afraid of this light of destruction. But now, they didn't even have 1/10 of their peak strength. After being severely injured by the fire magic sword and the Queen of Flame, their bodies dimmed and their auras became extremely weak. Bastard! The lunatic roared and stuffed the interspatial ring and the nomological inheritance he had snatched into Qin Feiyang's hands. Then, a terrifying murderous aura shot out from his body. His body instantly became 10,000 feet tall. It was as if the Blood Demon King had returned. His aura was terrifying. "Don't go." Seeing this, the Blood Ancestor hurriedly shouted. But it was too late. Lunatic took a step forward. However, before he could take the second step, a ray of light of destruction shot over like lightning and pierced through Lunatic's chest. Lunatic's blood demon body was shattered in the sky. Blood dyed the sky red, and even half of his divine soul was destroyed. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, the blood ancestor rushed in front of Lunatic, grabbed what was left of Lunatic's divine soul, and hurriedly protected it with the power of death. So powerful. Although Lunatic was in the form of a remnant soul at the moment, he felt cold sweat dripping down. A ray of light of destruction could actually destroy his blood demon body? He had fought countless strong enemies and never retreated, but at this moment, he couldn't help but feel a sense of fear. This was a terrifying existence that couldn't be defeated. Don't be hasty. As long as the 3,000 clones copy all 18 levels of hell, it'll be the end of them, the Blood Ancestor said. However, as soon as he finished speaking, another ray of light of destruction shot over and locked onto Qin Feiyang. Damn it! The Blood Ancestor was furious. He handed Lunatic's remnant soul to Qin Feiyang and decisively faced the ray of light of destruction with a monstrous power of death. At this moment, he couldn't resist with the 18 levels of hell. Because Qin Feiyong was copying. If the 18 levels of hell collapsed halfway, he would give up halfway. This kind of thing absolutely could not happen, because all the bets were on this. However, the Blood Ancestor didn't use his fist to block the ray of light of destruction. He activated the profound meaning of the law of death, and a blood-red crescent moon rose into the sky and charged toward the ray of light of destruction. Boom! The two profound meanings collided. Although it was only a ray of light of destruction, the crescent moon couldn't block it and shattered on the spot. With heaven and earth as the array and murderous intent as the guide, Slaughter Sword Array, activate. The Blood Ancestor roared, and his blood-red hair fluttered in the air. Boom! The next moment, waves of blood surged out in all directions with the Blood Ancestor as the center. In an instant, they flooded heaven and earth. Clang! Immediately after, blood swords appeared out of thin air. There were a total of 999 blood swords. Each blood sword was tens of thousands of feet long and seemed to be condensed from blood. They filled half the sky and exuded a destructive aura. Is this the ultimate profound meaning of the law of slaughter? Qin Feiyong murmured. With heaven and earth as the array and murderous intent as the guide, a super slaughter sword array was summoned. The Blood Ancestor was equivalent to the eye of this sword array. At this moment, the Blood Ancestor was like a real god of death, turning heaven and earth into a sea of slaughter. Kill! The Blood Ancestor roared, and the 999 blood swords shattered the sky and earth as they charged toward the ray of light of destruction. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.